Welcome to Pick Me Up, I'm Scared, the podcast.
I'm your host, Madeline.
And I'm your co-host, David.
And today we are doing our third part, which I think is the biggest episode we've ever done.
Is this...
The only three-parter, I think, so far.
We still have, like, at least two more parts of Cambridge 5.
Right, which we're going to try to record this week to get up on our Patreon as our bonus content for the month before the month is over.
Yeah.
So that's really exciting. So that will be the biggest one, and that's bonus content.
I worked on it all goddamn day.
Oh, I'm so excited.
It is fun.
Okay, well, that's going on over on our Patreon. So if you're not on our Patreon, it's patreon.com/pickmeupimscared, and we are talking about the Cambridge 5 over there, and it will probably be a 5-part episode.
Yeah, are we all... We've done 2?
We've done 2.
I feel like we might end up at 4.
Okay.
We'll see where we are. Like, because it's like, this is the longest podcast I am aware of.
2 hours?
All the podcasts I listen to are like an hour, maybe an hour, 20 minutes.
Really?
Yeah.
I feel like all the ones I listen to are like 1:30 to 2 hours. You know what? General feedback is people like the longer episodes.
No, I understand that, and I get distracted after an hour, so y'all have great attention spans.
Well, before we get into the episodes today, a couple things I wanted to mention. The first is that on August 24th, I will be in Fresno talking at the Queer Housing Summit.
Ooh.
And the person who was putting it on would like us to do a little podcast thing about Fresno and about the Queer Housing Summit. So I was thinking maybe we could do that as extra content that posts on our main, though.
Yeah.
So that's something, David, we're going to have to try to figure out this week with them.
Should I come down to Fresno? Up to Fresno? I haven't been to Fresno in like 5 years.
That could be kind of fun.
I love Fresno. We could live in Fresno. Well, not on location in Fresno.
We could do something in Fresno. That is something we should consider because it would be really, really fun. So that is like one thing that I wanted to mention that will be going on in Fresno, California on August 24th. And then the second thing is, do you want to talk about current events at all? There are 2 current events things really fast that were interesting to me today, but I also drove home from Tahoe with my boyfriend. He drove, so I was just in the car for 7 hours, so I was on Twitter all day.
I mean, news is... okay, what are you referring to? Because I've been reading The Human Factor by Graham Greene all day and writing about the Cambridge 5.
Okay, well, the first thing I thought you might be interested in, there is something happening that's like the real world and the internet coming together, and it is the Hegelian e-girl party. Do you know about this?
No, that sounds nice, though.
People it's got some real mixed reviews.
Is it... I gotta ask, are they doing early Hegel or are they doing late Hegel?
I'm not quite sure where the Hegel plays into the party, if I'm being perfectly honest.
It's like...
I think it might just be like a dance night put on by some girls who have been called Hegelian e-girls for their Twitter presences.
What the fuck is a Hegelian e-girl?
But they're like all these girls with doctorates who are really into Hegel.
That sounds cool.
And then they tweet vaguely left-leaning things and then post selfies.
That seems fine for them. I say this all the time. No social media. I read Graham Greene novels by the pool with a cup of coffee.
Well, that was something I thought you might enjoy knowing existed.
I feel like I still want to know because it seems like if it's like a theological writings Jenna era Hegel, that's like what, or if it's like I'm really into like whatever like absolutist guy in Prussia existed,
right?
Like later Hegel.
Yeah, well maybe you should look up Hegelian e-girls when you get
home.
Not right now, and you can look into it and you can see how you feel about it. So that's the first thing. Because
like I feel like Hegel got weird there at the end. He got fascist. Not fascist. Absolutist. Fascist. He got weird.
Have you seen also that the new plan to bring down the Republican Party is just to refer to J.D. Vance as weird?
He is a weird guy.
He's a weird guy, and apparently it's working really well, and like people, like nobody at the RNC foresaw a future where they would just have to combat the word weird as being a designator for one of their guys.
That was, I will say, up until the J.D. Vance nomination, the Trump campaign had it flawless.
I felt like they had it in the bag, honestly. I was and now you're got shot. He got an assassination attempt. Like, this guy.
He was, Meatball Ron, it happened, right? Like, all this, there was the part where, during the debate with Biden where he was like, are you okay? Which was,
whoa.
Where it's like, this seems like it's a lot. And then they got, Mr., I'm just gonna say, no shame, the beard is covering for a non-present jaw.
Okay. He's done some gender-affirming hair care.
Which I love.
Which we support.
We support that.
Yes.
I don't think his Republican colleagues, they are very into jaws.
Yes,
and
they are
phrenology.
Strong jaws. They are into phrenology. The Republicans love
skull
phrenology.
science kind of shit.
That does feel like them, yeah.
I've been interested somewhat in, actually, I wanted to talk to you about doing an Olympics episode.
Oh, yeah.
Because, there was, they, bombed the subway stations, or someone bombed the subway stations in Paris, which,
Yeah.
it seems like no one got hurt.
Mm-hmm.
When we were kids, the Atlanta bombing happened.
Yeah, that's right.
And we're gonna have the Olympics here.
So we're getting bombed. Someone's bombing the
LA
Olympics.
I know
that's not a threat. That's me saying if history is any indicator. That's a
prediction.
But
we've had many Olympics that haven't been bombed, and the LAPD has comically, and this happened right when defund the police was still a thing people talked about.
Yeah. We should bring that back. That was a banger.
That was, I
liked that one.
It got people talking. Mm-hmm. It was catchy.
Yeah.
But the LAPD ahead of the Olympics was asking for these monumental increases in budget to deal with surveillance and policing LA.
Right.
Which I believe they got.
Yeah, that sounds right. Yeah.
And there's a no Olympics campaign in LA that is this is gonna fuck housing, this is gonna fuck policing in LA.
So Kenna and I did a baby episode about Olympics a while ago, but I think it is worth revisiting.
Yeah, it's I think the sort of greenwashing aspect of it, the weird the ways in which basically nobody wants this in their city because it's all these major sporting events, they just fuck everyone's life up.
Have you been to Salt Lake City?
No.
Okay, well Utah's my favorite state.
Yeah, I don't know. You're a desert person who grew up in
Utah.
Yeah.
But yeah, you can see the old kind of crumbling leftover infrastructure from the Olympics in Utah, and it's really dystopian and interesting to me. In Salt Lake City, they have that there.
Yeah. You can't do anything else with that.
What are you supposed to do?
This is when I was a kid, my mom used to say there were many closed food for lesses.
Yes.
In Fresno as a thing.
Yeah.
And my mom would always, her solution for all of them was, they should make that into an ice skating rink.
Who's going to the ice skating rinks?
This was a thing I did as a kid every summer.
Well, I told you about the time Kristen and I went ice skating.
It was over on the 99, or
I'm
over
not
by
sure,
the 99.
but we went once, and I'd never been before.
Uh-huh.
And I've told this story before on the internet. I thought maybe to you, but we went ice skating, and I'd never done it before. And she had, I believe, and we went around the rink for maybe 10 minutes, and you pay for an hour and a half block or something.
Yeah.
And after a few minutes, I was like, I'm really bored of this. Is this all it is? You just go in a circle? And she was like, unless you're really good, yeah, but in an hour, you're not going to get really good. You're just going to go in a circle. And I was like, there's no way I can do this for another hour. So we went up to the guy working, and I was like, hey, do you think I can get a refund? And the guy was like, a refund for what? And I was like, I don't know, it just wasn't very fun. And he was like, what? And I was like, I've only been here a few minutes. It wasn't even 10 minutes. I feel like I skated for 5 minutes. I was like, I was only there for 5 minutes. I'd never done it before. I just thought it was kind of going to be more fun, and it wasn't that fun. And I know it's not like it's sold out, so it doesn't really matter if I paid for it or not. Is there any way I could get a refund? Because now I know it's just not for me. It just wasn't very fun. And he was like, nobody's ever asked me for a refund before. I've got to go ask my boss. So when he got his boss, and his boss came out, and his boss was like, sorry, you want a refund? And I was like, yeah, I want a refund. And he was like, was something wrong? And I was like, no, it just wasn't very fun. And then the guy looks at his boss. He's like, see, I told you, I don't know. And the boss was like, wasn't very fun. Huh. And I was like, well, I was only there for 5 minutes. And he looks at his watch. He's like, yeah, you must have been. And then they look at each other for a second. They're like, yeah, all right. Sure, here's your money back.
I feel like ice skating is it's like a kid thing, and especially in Fresno, it's 115 out.
Yeah.
Right? your parents are like, I don't want to pay for the air conditioner. Here's $10.
Go ice skating.
Go ice skating.
Yeah.
And it's basically like you go on a long walk for an hour and a half or whatever with your friends on the ice, and then maybe you get a slice of pizza.
Well, if you've never been, I do not recommend it.
It's not
an ADHD friendly activity, I will say.
I mean, if you are a rambunctious kid, you can like knock each other over. You can roughhouse.
There are blades involved.
Yes, I recognize that.
Oh, okay.
I was like a rowdy preteen.
Okay. All right.
Just
That's
like
gender.
That's a gender?
Yeah, I think so.
Rowdy preteen?
Yeah. I think that's like gender. Like, that's you, like, performing gender.
No, it was just...
Because me and the girly pops weren't rowdy like that as preteens.
Okay, I didn't
We
know
were
I
putting
was
on,
doing...
like, black pencil eyeliner in our water lines and looking in the mirror and being like, do we look scary enough to go to the mall?
I will... Okay, the one... I did once kick a locker door into my friend's face and almost cut his eye
See?
out. And
I've never done this. We didn't even get lockers at my schools, though.
It was in, like, the gym.
Okay. I never took gym.
And
It was too weird.
even in middle school, they didn't make it?
Oh, you know what? In middle school, I did take gym.
Yeah.
Just in high school, I didn't. Because, you know, if you're weird in high school, they don't make you take gym. They think it's going to be bad for you.
Oh, no, I took walking at Fresno City College, and then, like, the guy was, like, the football coach or whatever, so he, like, had other, like, bigger fish to fry, so
Right.
I would, like, do one lap around the field and then just leave.
Yeah. I did, like, juggling.
Yeah.
I did theater movement. I like that this is a universal experience, though. If you're, like, a weird kid in high school, all the adults are like, we can't put you in a PE class. It will go bad.
I mean, for me, I did at Fresno Christian.
And did it go bad? Did it go bad? I bet it went bad.
I will say, after, like, the first few like wildly homophobic type, like, physical assaults or whatever, I kind of leaned into it. It was
you
like,
gotta own it at a certain point,
where
or
it
they're
was
just
like,
gonna keep coming for you.
And so I would just aggressively hit on my classmates while we were, like, playing tennis or baseball or whatever.
Oh, that's good.
Because it was like, I'm gonna get my ass kicked anyway
You might
by
as well
these
have fun.
So I would just be like, damn, your ass is looking real good in those shorts over there.
And at Fresno Christian, this went over well.
Someone once hit me in the head with a tennis racket.
Could have been
Like,
worse.
The
wood part.
The wood part.
Oh, yeah, that is worse. Yeah, it's not so great.
Not fun.
It's not
but,
great. So, yeah, the weird kids, we're not cut out for PE.
Yeah.
Everybody kind of collectively knew it. Well, okay, so...
The weird kids might, however, get a job doing propaganda for U.S. intelligence in various places of Asia.
Okay, well, I was actually going to bring you back to J.D. Vance. Weird in a different way.
Okay.
Weird in a not charming way.
Oh, shit. Okay. I wasted a transition.
I just wanted to say that when you mentioned the Trump campaign going flawlessly up until the J.D. Vance thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. You know, there's that quote about how politics is the media and entertainment division of the U.S. military.
Okay.
Have you ever heard this quote?
No, I feel like that's a succinct way of putting something we all know.
Yeah, I like it. And I was just going to say, you know, Trump's a performer, so it just makes sense if it's something he would excel at.
I think, right, the problem, here's the, right, do you remember when, like, a bunch of, like, Ron DeSantis, like, staffers, like, they accidentally posted, like, on purpose posted, like, Black Sun, like, neo-Nazi graphics on, like, the DeSantis
No, I missed it.
website, and it was, like, meant to appeal. Also, I've been thinking, the Proud Boys can't take Fred Perry from us.
You want to bring back Fred Perry.
I feel like, because Fred Perry stopped selling that polo shirt in the U.S.
And for anybody who doesn't know, Fred Perry was really important to indie kids in the 90s and early 2000s because it was like a mod revival thing.
And, like, skinhead in a non-racist way.
The sharp thing. Yeah.
Yeah, it was cool.
Fred Perry was important to us. It would be like somebody co-opting Betsy Johnson for Nazi propaganda.
That would be weird.
It would be weird. It was very weird to see the skinheads try to claim...
Or like the Proud Boys.
Proud Boys, not the actual. Yeah. The Proud Boys try to claim Fred Perry because you're like, wait a minute, you can't have that. The kids who were too weird for PE classes, we wear Fred Perry.
But I also I was just like also I've just been in. I don't know why I've been listening to a lot of Oi lately.
Okay, yeah, all right.
Angelic Upstarts, The Oppressed, fucking great bands.
Okay,
Okay,
all right,
but in any case, I like. JD Vance is like, that was meant to appeal to like Proud Boys, like terminally online right wing weirdo guy, like the Black Sun, all of that bullshit with Ron DeSantis. And JD Vance is like, for some reason, the Trump administration thinks that an important like voting bloc is like guys who leave like all caps comments on like women's YouTube pages about video games.
Yeah. Okay. And that's JD Vance.
And to me, I'm like, I don't...
Because the only things I know about JD Vance are that people think his face is too small for his head, which
True.
we are not into body shaming. So let his tiny face exist. That's not our problem.
Listen, I will not make a normative claim. I will say it is a very small face.
Okay. All right.
I'm not saying it's bad.
We see where people got the info from.
Yes.
Okay. So that's that. And then also that he had sex with a couch.
What?
Yeah, this is something he apparently admitted to, having sex with a couch. I don't know. I just know everybody on Twitter is talking about how JD Vance had sex with a couch. I'm not really sure. And then also I've seen a lot of people point out that he tweeted something about a video where a woman is assaulted by a dolphin. Because you know that's the thing dolphins do, which is, another argument to not go in the ocean. So he, though, in his results for this video, where he was like, what the fuck is this video? The words woman and dolphin were highlighted, which means he searched it. It's from his search history.
So he's like a dolphin.
He searched woman dolphin and then was like, look at this creepy shit. But he looked it up, is what everybody was saying. And then the third thing that I just saw before we started recording is that a guy on TikTok was like, hey, I used to date JD Vance, but he didn't go by the name JD Vance, and also he had a sock fetish, which that one feels probably not true, but it's a fun one to add to the lore.
Because there was somewhat famously a guy who kept being like, I hooked up with Barack Obama back when he was like a state senator or some shit. Oh. I feel like people come out of the woodwork. The only one I believe is I once met a guy who had been a part of like the Ted Haggard shit.
Ted Haggard?
He was like that megachurch guy who got caught like doing meth.
I believe anything about the megachurch guys. 100%.
But like I met one of the like methed out gay guys who he was partying with, and I was like, you seem legit.
Yeah.
I don't know. I feel like that seems like...
Well, they do say that the Republican National Convention is the biggest traffic weekend for Grindr.
That I believe.
They say it's like the Grindr Super Bowl.
That seems realistic.
That's
fine. I also, you know what?
It's possible. It's possible this guy did date JD Vance, and JD Vance has a sock fetish, and we don't we don't kink shame either.
I'm just saying.
So that's fine. So
we don't kink shame?
No, we're not kink shaming JD Vance. It's a real sentence I just said.
I'm sorry, we can't even... Okay.
I will say all of the kinks together paint a picture that I would not expect for a Republican vice presidential candidate. The couch and the dolphins and the socks all together. He's got all three. He's coming out strong. That's all I'm saying.
Okay, so I have questions.
Okay, I don't probably have answers, but this is all I've heard. But let's
First
try
of all, clean socks or dirty socks?
I assume dirty.
Isn't
a sock fetish a dirty sock thing?
I don't like because if it's like maybe this is like a holdover of a very specific kind of teen boy. I gotta get rid of some stuff.
Okay, yeah,
maybe
I didn't think about
thing.
that. That's pretty, yeah.
I
was thinking even more like Jason, a foot fetish is pretty common. Hosiery's a common fetish. Hosiery is a common fetish.
If it were like I want the socks on. I was at a bookstore the other day, and I just heard...
Okay, that was an abrupt left turn, but let's
roll. No. Yeah. And I just overheard the woman behind the counter go, I think it would be hotter if the sock were coming slightly off, to one of her coworkers. And I was like...
Oh.
What the fuck? And I was like, I feel like I walked in, because I was the only one in the bookstore, and I was like...
Yeah.
I don't think I was supposed to hear that.
I mean, I think it's a pretty... The thing is, look, all of these... I've been around... I've experienced the world for 38 years.
Person of the world?
I'm worldly. I am not. My pearls are not clutched to hear about a sock fetish or somebody having sexual intercourse with a couch. That seems kind of normal to me. I've heard a lot of people of every gender expression Be like, yeah, when I was a kid, you know, you're doing your healthy self-discovery as a kid. I've heard multiple people reference a couch. Okay, that's fine.
This is a common...
I've heard more than one person reference
Did I, like,
this,
skip
yes.
a part of...
You know, it's
Okay.
fine. It's fine. You know what happens? The dolphin one's a little more concerning to me, but even that, you know, I'm not shocked.
It seems... I feel like there, like... fascination with, like,
Taboo?
paraphilias or whatever of various kinds goes in waves, and I feel like me, a non-kink, what's the kink one, the kink website?
I don't know what kink
Adult fun, so I don't know, like where the like kink type people go find each other.
Yeah.
Like I am not, this is not my scene, right? I feel like it's kind of Burning Man to me.
Okay, I mean that makes sense because the most exposure I had to like institutionalized kink culture was in San Francisco, and it was with an area we called the Alamo that was purchased, and then it was used to make a lot of kink content. I mean, full disclosure, I have done some very, very mild kink content when I was very, very broke.
That's okay.
I once fully clothed ate a sandwich into a video for like $200.
God,
it was just a close-up of my face. That video is probably somewhere on the internet. I'm not shaming
that's
anybody involved in it.
That is, I have to say, almost a very charming. Like if someone's like, I would just like to see someone get fed.
Yeah. It was girlseatingsandwiches.com. It does not exist anymore. I think that's what it was, but I tried to look it up back on Wayback Machine, and it wasn't there. So maybe I'm remembering.
But okay, so you're saying it's Dirty Socks.
I'm thinking it's probably Dirty Socks, but I could see an argument for the hosiery thing anyway. I think just here's the thing. 3 of them coming out all that fast?
Well, that's my next question.
For the Republican nominee?
That's my next question is it all together?
No.
Is
all
it like
separate incidents, which make it even more... I'm just a little surprised.
No, is he, when he's like in J.D. Vance's like most like private thoughts, do you think he's like a dolphin wearing socks on a couch?
On a couch. I think yes.
Like that's
I like it. I hate that it makes him likable to me. I need to reassess that though. But yeah, no. So okay, and then the third and final current event type thing is the Venezuela thing, but it's relevant to today's episode.
Okay, so
maybe we hold off on the Venezuela thing until we get to the section of today's episode where we talk about radio and TV Marty. Oh,
that's right.
Yes. So today is our third part episode, getting into the real stuff now that we have horrified you all with...
We did Europe.
We did Europe, yes. We did Europe. I was thinking more about the J.D. Vance and the Sox and the Dolphin situation. But now that we have kind of, transitioned back into the actual meat of this episode, it's the U.S. Agency for Global Media. If you have not listened to parts 1 and 2, you will definitely want to listen to those. They outline the history of the USAGM as well as 2 of the most prominent news networks that fall under it. So just to catch us up to speed, USAGM, U.S. Agency for Global Media, it's a part of the U.S. government, right?
Yeah.
It's funded by Congress.
It used to be a CIA thing, and then they were like, this is getting too hot, we need to go above board.
Yes, it used to be called the Broadcasting Board of Governors at one point. It had several other names before that you might have heard of. And they get a little over $800 million a year currently in federal funding.
So, like, we're out of money for social services.
But no, we're spending all this money at the USAGM. So the U.S. Agency for Global Media, they oversee 5 propaganda wings that are all dedicated to spreading information about the world and about the United States that helps advance a U.S. militaristic and economic policy agenda around the globe, foreign policy. So it's really a tool of American foreign policy, and it is the most cost-effective tool we have at our disposal. And we've been doing it since the 1940s. Mm-hmm. And we have already covered in episode 1, Voice of America, which is the largest. It receives the most funding, and it is the most, above-board seeming one.
It's like legit in the sense that they're probably not just outright lying.
But they are creating stories based on creatively kind of withholding information, editing information, kind of curating a story. So they're giving you a lot of half-truths to paint a picture.
Yeah.
And they're also, their stories, they were working with the State Department. Remember, the State Department would tell them words they weren't allowed to use. Don't use those people and call those people insurgents. Don't call those people revolutionaries.
So, in the same sense that, they're, but like the top line U.S. like position, like the stuff they get we would hear like the Secretary of State was in like The Hague today talking about blah 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 blah.
Yes. So they, though, like everything we're going to talk about with USAGM, it's not intended for an American audience, with the brief exception recently of Radio and TV Marti, which we'll get into. But it's more intended for other people around the world. And if you think this is a small thing, it is absolutely not. There are tens of millions of listeners for all of these stations combined. It has massive reach. So our first episode, we got into Voice of America. The second episode, we talked about Radio Free Europe and Radio Liberty, which are widely, attributed to bringing about the downfall of communism in Europe.
Yeah, we talked. What were the countries we talked about?
Well, we talked about Czechoslovakia and Poland, but Hungary is the most interesting one.
Yeah.
That's a big one because Radio Free Europe, Radio Liberty is responsible for the Hungarian uprising.
So what you're saying, justice for the tanks in 1956.
I'm saying maybe the CIA was the real tanky all along.
They had tanks in your mind.
They did. They were putting tanks in your mind, and they were lying, and they were making you believe, oh, this is kind of a Hegel thing. They were telling you the thoughts of tanks were real around you. Is that Hegel? Did he tell you your thoughts create reality?
I'm still trying to parse what you just said, I
tried to bring it back. I don't know. I have not read Hegel. I know I should. I've read synopses of Hegel after David has berated me about Hegel.
I have never berated. Okay.
Oh my god. Okay,
this is some USAIG style propaganda here.
USAGM.
Okay, I don't. There are.
USAIG, isn't that like the? Is that the Actors Guild? The Screen Actors Guild?
No, that's SAG.
USAIG.
I don't. There are the US. I got like.
All of the acronyms get really confusing.
I think I got all the letters in there.
No, you put in a random I. It was almost...
No, I put an extra I, but I got all the...
It was almost the U.S. MGIK, which is the U.S. military government in Korea.
That would be...
That was okay. Also similar. The acronyms...
I'm just saying, fake news.
Okay, alright. Well... Today, the part of USAGM we are going to start off talking about is the third largest news source that falls under its umbrella, and that is Radio Free Asia. And then ideally, we will also have time to wrap up the rest of the episode by talking about Radio and TV Marti, which broadcasts to Cuba, and then also the Middle Eastern Broadcasting Networks.
That's the one I'm just stoked to hear what they're playing in like Iran.
Yeah, it's pretty interesting. So... we're going to start off, we're going to get into Radio Free Asia first. And if you've listened to the podcast for a while, you know we have a whole episode about Radio Free Asia. It's called Radio Free Whatever. If you'd like to listen to it, you can. But I am still going to explain Radio Free Asia here, so this episode stands alone, so you don't have to, basically.
Okay.
So, Radio Free Asia began transmitting in 1951. And the New York Times, when talking about Radio Free Asia, said that originally it was broadcasting from an elaborate set of transmitters in Manila.
That actually made, like, the Philippines, somewhat famously, our oldest and longest running colony.
Yes.
Coming out of the Spanish-American War, and up until I think the 1950s was a colony, and then became largely a client state.
Yes, and this is something we kind of see, with a lot of countries around the globe. The United States, our goal is to make, you know how we say satellite states of the USSR? We talked about that in the last episode. That we have these satellite states of the United States, basically, that fall under our influence because we have economically or militaristically dominated them.
Yeah, and the Philippines is an interesting example because it is the most explicitly that was a colony. Right. Like there's no it's not Cuba or something where it's like, it's like kind of a like American business more or less runs the show, but it's not like the army isn't there.
Right. The Philippines was a colony.
Yeah.
So, the Radio Free Asia obviously was started by our favorite people, the CIA.
The CIA, yeah.
The CIA clearly started Radio Free Asia, and they started it because they wanted something in the region, in Asia, to be as successful in fighting communism there as Radio Free Europe was in Europe. They knew. They were like, 1951, Radio Free Europe had only been going a few years at that point, right? But they were like, this is really working, and we need something that works this well in Asia. So, Radio Free Asia was actually part of this thing that the CIA had created before called the Committee for a Free Asia, or CFA. And this had been created by the CIA in an effort to shield the CIA from being directly linked to certain, activities it was doing in Asia to try to undermine the popularity of socialism and communism there.
Mm-hmm.
So they were like, we're going to create Radio Free Asia. It should be done under the CFA, under the Committee for a Free Asia, so it's not really linked to us. So we see that they get a little more savvy with each of these media sources that they're creating, and they try to find more ways to distance it from the CIA and grant it more pseudo-legitimacy from an outside perspective.
They're just, it's like a shell company within a shell company within a shell company at this point.
Exactly.
Right?
And this is important because, this is kind of the trajectory that gets us to the United States government establishing the USAGM and being like, look how legitimate it is. It's all above board. And really, when we trace this back, it is all stuff that was started by the CIA as part of these, clandestine destabilization efforts to overthrow the governments of other countries. So the CFA later ended up changing its name to the Asia Foundation. So you might have heard some things about TAF or the Asia Foundation before. If you, like me, think it's really, really fun to scroll through declassified CIA documents all weekend long, you've seen the Asia Foundation mentioned all over documents from the 1950s. So the Asia Foundation was headed for years by a guy named Robert Blum, who officially resigned from his role at the CIA specifically to take over the Asia Foundation, as though this somehow would distance the Asia Foundation from the CIA if nobody looked hard enough. Mm-hmm. They were like, no, it's a new thing. It's super legitimate. Robert Blum, you are no longer at the CIA. Now you're over there at the Asia Foundation, which is definitely not the CIA.
Do you think that Robert Blum was like, God damn it, guys,
Oh, I feel like it was definitely a political demotion.
He was just putting all of it, his pictures of his family in the little cardboard box at his desk, and was just like, oh fuck, man, guys, can I sit at lunch with you?
And they're like, no, you need to leave, Robert. Get out of here.
Bobby
Blum. He must have fucked up something to get this assignment.
I am assuming that he knocked over one of Alan Dulas's martinis.
Probably. Yeah, that makes sense. So from there, the CIA proceeded to provide the Asia Foundation with all of the cover and financial support it needed to perform both covert and overt actions in Asia. And the goal was to shape public opinion about communism.
Mm-hmm.
So again, you think a lot of people's opinions about what communism is, how well it's worked, how well it hasn't worked, how it operates, that has all been carefully crafted by the United States government.
Yeah.
And people really have a hard time confronting that. Even very intelligent people are like, no, I'm very intelligent. I get my information from a variety of sources. And then you look at them and you're like, actually, all of these link back to the United States government in one way or another. People have a really hard time believing this. And again, it can be really overwhelming. But this is one of those early examples we see. The Asia Foundation was in Asia trying to shape public opinion about communism and socialism in Asia, right?
Yeah.
So, we're not only having this ideology here in the United States kind of told to us repeatedly, but it is also something that we're spreading to other parts of the world. And sometimes I'm online a lot. People will be like, well, I'm not an American, and I think this about communism. And I'm like, yeah, our government went there and did this to raise this public perception of communism where you are.
I think, this is against a backdrop of the sort of post-war Chinese Civil War. Between nationalists under Chiang Kai-shek, I think it was, and obviously Mao on the other side, and obviously a wave of third wave nationalisms that often had a very left socialist type bent, and we're kicking out the Dutch from Indonesia, or
post-colonial,
which is there's a power vacuum.
Yes, totally. So from there, basically, you've got the Asia Foundation moving throughout Asia, and they're doing all sorts of little interesting things. Mm-hmm. They're setting up little newspapers. They're funding people who are existing in Asia who maybe don't like communism. If you listen to our episode about National Endowment for Democracy, how Ned will kind of look for people in countries who don't like their government, their socialist left-leaning government, aren't happy with them, and then just throw a bunch of money at them and try to amplify their voice. This is kind of what the Asia Foundation was doing. Yeah. And the CIA was always kind of up to this. The CIA had a very multifaceted playbook. They would straight up spread propaganda themselves, spread misinformation themselves, start their own newspapers, start their own agencies, but also heavily fund anybody who already existed in target countries who had views and ideas that were sympathetic to the American point of view as well.
It should be mentioned, lest this get lost in all of the CIA things, they did also like fund right-wing terrorist groups to like bomb like public markets and stuff.
Yes,
right. So
definitely.
let's just make sure like
Yes.
they're not just a news organization.
No. We happen to be talking about the news arm of it today. But yeah, there was also militant action being done at the behest of the CIA.
And I think those actually go hand, because it's like, wow, everything like this like new third world type nationalist government that just took over, they can't seem to control anything. It's just suddenly gotten so violent.
Exactly. This is all part of the playbook. Yeah. So, in 1955, the CIA helped the Asia Foundation start a program where they would select and fund journalists to study in Asia from Harvard's Nieman Fellowship Program.
Okay.
So they would be like, we're looking at like the top American journalists and we're going to send them to Asia to report what the CIA wants for the Asia Foundation.
To Asian people.
To Asian people and to the United States, but we're not going to tell them that it's part of the CIA. Because remember, at this time the Asia Foundation is not trying to associate itself with the CIA.
So there's just this journalist that's like, why am I suddenly getting all this goddamn money?
Exactly.
Right, like
So
this is
kind of
crazy.
like CIA long leash stuff. A lot of people have worked for the CIA and not known about it. And this is actually one of the Ian Sidonius bands, Scene Creamers, which later had to change the name to Weird War. It was like his psych rock band. Yeah, they had to, because it turns out there was another band called Scene Creamers. So it was his psych rock band, but they have a song where the lyrics are, I was working for the CIA and I didn't even know it, and it's about the CIA's long leash program. This would be something like this. There were musicians, there were artists, there were also journalists who literally were being paid and funded by the CIA and had no clue.
Yeah, and it's the comical thing is like the like long fallout from that is like delegitimizing entire art move, like
Abstract expressionism had its name dragged through the mud because of CIA involvement.
And I'm gonna say some of those paint splatters are very pretty.
Very lovely, yeah. So this is kind of the environment that Radio Free Asia was existing as a part of under the Asia Foundation in the 1950s. So you could see it was like a tool of kind of doing what we saw Radio Free Europe do, Voice of America. We're trying to craft an agenda, create a narrative. This is the thing. As someone who exists on the internet a lot, the truth doesn't matter. The narrative is everything.
You're beginning to sound a little bit like Hegel.
Oh, see? Yes,
no,
exactly.
I mean, that, like, literally not. Like, the opposite of Hegel. But
no, so this is kind of what they're doing. They're like, we're going to establish the narrative. We're going to craft the story. And we're going to do some role play. We're going to do a little LARPing to support our narrative.
They're going to get into the kink space.
Right. And then they're also just literally going to narrate it via the news.
Yeah.
And via stories from Radio Free Asia. And remember how Radio Free Europe was marketed as being like, the bold people who escaped communism in Europe. Now we have them here talking to you on shortwave radio about how you too can escape communism in Europe.
This is, if you, like me, like read spy novels a lot, the journalist who works for the CIA is very common. It's in The Quiet American. It's in The Honorable Schoolboy. It's the classic trope.
Right. But what they did that was interesting is they took people from that country, like expats who were no longer there.
Yeah.
So, for example, if you are in the United States and you talk to Cuban people in Florida, you would be like, absolutely everybody in Cuba hates their government, because all the Cuban people living in Florida are telling me how much they hated their government. But you have kind of this, like, selection bias. It's like, well, everybody who hated it, they left.
No, I have on several occasions been on first dates where it's been, like, just getting yelled at by, like, someone whose parents fled Cuba.
Right.
And it's...
But this is what happens, and this is why, when you look at, like, people's regret for the dissolution of the USSR, most countries, not every country, there are, like, 3 countries where actually more people regret, or more people are happy that the USSR dissolved than, like, regret its dissolution, but most countries that were involved with the USSR... Is
it Finland?
I can't remember, but I think I might have the data in a bit that we'll look at, actually. I think it's, like, Poland was one, Czechoslovakia. I don't think they were actually part of the USSR,
They were just... in the
sphere of... So these were countries where people regretted the fall of communism. In most countries, people miss communism. The overwhelming majority of people, especially older people who lived through communism and capitalism, were like, communism was better, I want it back. But even then, it's not everybody. It'll be like 68% versus like 32%. And you look at that and you're like, well, of course, the 32% of people are real, and you're going to hear them say that they're not happy with it and they don't like it.
Yeah.
So what the CIA would do is they would be places, and they would be like, oh, we need to find, for example, those 32% who weren't happy, and we need to amplify their voices and make it seem like their voices are the only voices. And you encounter this, I think, as an American too. A lot of people will be like, I don't know who to trust about what's happening, for example, in Venezuela. And it's like, well, yeah, of course not, because Venezuelan people aren't monolith.
Yeah.
Everybody in different countries has different places they're coming from, different perspectives, different info they're working with, different experiences. So you're never going to get, and this is kind of like a problem with like white American identity politics. If you're like, listen to people of color, you're like, they are not one person. They all have different experiences.
There's many of them.
There's many of them. So you can't, you're going to listen to them have disparate viewpoints, and it's a lot more listening and understanding you have to do than just conveniently falling on one person. But Radio Free Europe and Radio Free Asia kind of try to feed into the opposite of that. We're going to take the voices that we can find, even if it's just one guy in accounting, he's the only one who thinks this way. If his ideas are the same as the American agenda, we're going to amplify that voice as loud as we possibly can, and we're going to put it on a radio station and make everybody listening think that this guy's voice is actually the most common one, and his opinion is the dominant one in the region.
You know, okay, I'm just going to say, I'm living in Russia. First of all, if you see what we did to Russia in the 90s, like it was like, oh, I know why they missed it, because deregulation fucked their economy.
I mean, it was horrible.
Made it like basically an entire kleptocracy.
Yeah, and
right.
Also the dissolution of the USSR, the fall of the USSR, was the single greatest catastrophic event in terms of life expectancy drop ever recorded in human history.
Yeah,
it devastated countries who had previously been communist.
You know, let's say it's 1982.
Yeah.
I live in Estonia, or I guess we're in Asia.
We're in Asia.
I live in Vietnam.
Uh-huh.
And, I'm having a hard time making ends meet. And, like,
maybe the United States has put sanctions against your country. Or
but, like,
maybe there was a natural disaster that made things hard in your country. Or, maybe any number of things have occurred that make your life not 100% ideal. And
I see that bags of cash seem to just be deposited at the most annoying guy in town's house all the time.
Yeah.
I'm going to become the most annoying guy in town.
Right.
Like, I'm just like, oh, this is how, like...
This is how you make money.
Yeah.
Yeah, the Americans are helping me. Why not?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. No, it is pretty interesting. So this is really what the CIA was up to. They were like, we need to find the voices... no matter how few and far between they are, maybe they're more common some places, maybe they're less common, it doesn't matter. There could be one guy. If there's one guy in the country with this opinion, we're finding that one guy, and we are getting them to talk on this radio station as one of these people to them.
Which I feel like I have to imagine, Vietnam as an example. If you're like, oh, that's Bob. Bob sucks.
Right, but not everybody knows Bob. Not everybody is like, I know Bob. Bob's wackadoo. Everybody's like, this guy's making some sense because he's being coached also by the world's greatest superpower who has a history in this and a ton of money. So, this is like a very interesting thing. We see this, it's talent scouting, just like we talked about in our NED episode, National Endowment for Democracy. Once you get familiar with how the CIA moves, you'll see this is just what they do. They talent scout people from different countries who are sympathetic to the United States, and then we fund them, so we could be like, oh, it's not what we want, it's what those people want. Support them, listen to them.
There are people that we also send to school.
And we also educate people.
A very specific type of school.
We do that. We bring people to study under Milton Friedman at the University of Chicago to learn about American economic policy and try to propagandize them there. We bring them to WINSEC, School of the Americas, to teach them how to overthrow their countries. We are very, very active in these situations, but we try to present them as though it's just these people talking about what they want for their own country, and we minimize American involvement in that process. So that is what they were trying to do with Radio Free Asia. It's what they had done with Radio Free Europe, and it was working. But early on, Radio Free Asia ran into some hiccups. So in 1951, when they first launched Radio Free Asia, the CIA didn't realize that private citizens in mainland China didn't have radio receivers.
So they're like, oh shit, we got to get all of these people radios.
Exactly. So to make this work, the CIA was like, how do we get people in mainland China radios? And they sent balloons holding small radios inside that were tuned to the Radio Free Asia frequency. They were like, we'll just release these balloons into China.
Oh wait, was it Malaysia where like all the phones came preloaded with Facebook, and it ended up leading to like a weird coup?
Okay. I don't know about that, but that sounds exactly like the CIA playbook. Yes. Like, remember how in Cuba, the CIA worked with Jack Dorsey to make a Cuban Twitter?
Oh, yeah.
But then the Cuban Twitter just fed you information about, like, revolutions that the CIA was trying to plan in Cuba?
This might be one of the few instances where you could say the algorithm is actually fucked. Like, they fucked the algorithm.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. So, they are like, we're going to send these balloons out from Taiwan towards the mainland. And then this is just one of those comedy of errors things. A big gust of wind came and just blew them all back.
Oh, I was just imagining, like, radios, like, falling on people's heads. And them just being like, what the fuck, man?
Yeah.
Like...
Eventually they got some people some radios. But by 1952, the CIA was, like, begging the State Department. They're like, we need more than this. This is not working. We got to do something here to get these people to actually hear what we're trying to do. Like, look, you saw the success we have with Radio Free Europe, Radio Liberty. Let us do this in Asia, but help us.
Open a Radio Shack on every fucking corner.
Let's go.
Let's do it.
So the State Department agreed, and they expanded their funding for Radio Free Asia by providing a shortwave transmitter that was placed strategically in order to enhance the broadcast to mainland China. Mm-hmm. So these broadcasts at that time were coming from San Francisco, which is pretty far. So then they would be relayed in Manila in 3 Chinese dialects and English. And the programming would be kind of like what we heard with Radio Free Europe, Radio Liberty. There would be news, there would be commentary, there would be music programs, there would be special features. And by 1953, Radio Free Asia was broadcasting for 4 hours a day, 6 days a week, and they were targeting Southeast Asian countries. Like, they were targeting China in particular. Mm-hmm. A direct quote from the CIA on this says, these programs are principally anti-communist propaganda. So this is their goal. They're just outright, they're like, we are trying to make people hate communism. Mm-hmm. So the CIA is doing all this, but they are still pretty afraid of getting exposed. Yeah. They're like, and also it's worth mentioning, Radio Free Asia was not as big as Radio Free Europe had been. Okay. It was a lot too little shakier start, and the CIA was like, oh, people might track this back to us. So in internal documents, they are constantly talking about how embarrassing it would be if people figured out that RFA, Radio Free Asia, and the Asia Foundation were just the CIA. Like, you see them panicking about it.
I gotta imagine it's also in San Francisco, whereas, like...
The CIA did a lot of shit in San Francisco, too.
Oh, no.
They were up to a lot in San Francisco.
The amount, like, anytime I hear, like, liberal California, blah, 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 I'm like, no, this is, like, the weirdest, most fucked up, like, policed place in the world.
Oh, yeah.
It's crazy, but the CIA has been all over this fucking place.
They've been all over California. They've been super involved in San Francisco. So when I heard this was coming out of San Francisco, I was like, yeah, of course. They were also doing a bunch of LSD experiments in San Francisco. They were doing all those experiments with sex workers in San Francisco as well.
I don't know about the sex workers.
Oh, they were just like, what perfect combination of elements, if introduced, will convince a man to just, like, tell a honeypot all of his secrets about his job if he's, like, a foreign agent. So they would set up these things where they'd try to, like, drug people, give them alcohol, and then send them to a sex worker, and the CIA would be, like, behind a two-way mirror watching these people have sex, and then be like, did he tell her about his job at the end of it? Yes or no? And if yes, they'd be like, okay, here's the cocktail of what we gave him. And if not, it's like, well, that didn't work.
Oh, I was assuming that they were, like, trying to, like, figure out the, like, sex acts.
Oh, that too.
They,
no, it was
like,
everything. It was everything. They were like, we're going to get so into exactly what steps we take to make, basically, people working for other governments.
And this is how the Alamo was born.
This is exactly where kink culture in San Francisco came from. And that is how we got girlsfuckingmachines.com.
Or eating sandwiches.
Dude, like,
I am assuming that was like a CIA experiment where like some guy was like,
it could have been, honestly. I can't find it online anymore.
I just really want to see a girl eat a sandwich, and then like I will definitely tell you about all of like my like Chinese data knowledge.
Yeah, I mean potentially. So in these internal documents, Radio Free Asia, the CIA is like, oh, we're really afraid somebody's going to find out. What do we do? Meanwhile, the Committee for Free Asia, which would later become the Asia Foundation, which was their little group they created to be like, it's not the CIA, haha, it's this, Radio Free Asia, or that. They were saying in internal documents that their principal objective was to bring into being, stimulate, and assist Asian groups in the formation of self-sustaining and dynamic democratic cells. And remember, whenever the United States uses the words like freedom or democracy, they literally just mean neoliberal capitalism, okay?
I'm assuming dynamic means, like, they're gonna do a lot of shit, some
Yes.
of which is, like, pretty gnarly.
Yeah, they're going to take direct action, which themselves will oppose communism and strengthen the political, social, and cultural structures of their own nations. The success of CFA field representatives in the past 6 months and getting this concept across has been an important factor in winning Asian acceptance. So they're basically like, look, we need to make this look like this isn't Americans, this isn't white people, this is Asian people doing it for their own country, and we've seen success. And we're starting to get legitimized. The Asia Foundation, CFA, Committee for Free Asia, starting to be taken seriously there. So they say RFA is not and cannot be animated by that concept. It's probable that the greater RFA success in becoming a voice in Asia, the more difficult it will become for CFA representatives to maintain or expand Asian acceptance of CFA as an enlightened U.S. organization interested primarily in helping Asians help themselves. So they're like, look, Committee for Free Asia, the Asia Foundation, we got some shit going on. It's really good. It's working. But Radio Free Asia, it might fuck us up. Like people in Asia, basically the kind of the idea I get from looking at it is that people in Asia are not as stupid as people in Europe were. People in Asia are more suspicious. And we have been able to successfully integrate ourselves in Asia, the Asia Foundation, Committee for Free Asia. We've got work going on, and they do see us as kind of legitimate. It was a lot of work. But they will smell the bullshit on Radio Free Asia from a mile away. You cannot associate Radio Free Asia with us anymore because it's going to bring us down.
No, I feel like the big difference, or among the big differences, A, we were pumping shit tons of Marshall Plan money into Europe.
Yep.
B, this is in that William Blum book. We were often, right, the Japanese were not great in China during World War II.
That is an understatement.
They were...
That is an understatement.
Bad.
It was bad. It was some of the most horrifying things that I have ever read about in my life.
And William Blum talks about the fact that the United States in China was sort of collaborating with both the nationalists and the communists and let's get the Japanese out of here. But because the United States very, very quickly shifted focus from let's defeat the Japanese to let's defeat the communists, often Japanese soldiers would be guarding trains at the behest of America during the nationalist communist civil war and the post-war era, which means there are large numbers of people who are sitting there watching Americans collaborate with the people who just did war crimes.
Horrific war crimes. And all war crimes are bad.
They're not getting shit tons of cash pumped into the economy the way Europe did.
So they are skeptical of Americans.
Yeah.
They are skeptical kind of what's going on around them. But Committee for Free Asia, later to become the Asia Foundation, is we are having success, dear CIA, with our work. Not Radio Free Asia, though. Mm-hmm. Meanwhile, Voice of America is still going strong on the radio front, and Committee for Free Asia is we don't need to do radio. Voice of America is doing radio. It's been established. We're going to do field projects on the ground that don't involve radio, and they are going to pay off way better than Radio Free Asia even would. So they have, for example, at this time in documents where they're writing to the CIA, they're look, we've opened 5 bookstores.
That seems...
Yeah.
This is basically it's a plot of The Quiet American.
Oh.
I love that fucking...
Okay, maybe I should read it. You're convincing me.
It is very short, and the conclusion you come to is that the only quiet American is a dead American.
Wow. Okay, love it. They also were we produced a movie here.
Ooh,
and it's gotten some good responses.
What's the movie?
I don't know because they don't say the name of it, but I bet we could look it up. If we looked up Committee for a Free Asia movie or something like that. Mm-hmm. So by this point, CFA has started writing to the CIA, quote, not only is Radio Free Asia not delivering like Radio Free Europe did, but it actually might be making it harder for us to follow through with all of the other good stuff we've got going on, and they might stop trusting CFA altogether. So this is what they're saying. They're look, come on. You gotta let the Radio Free Asia thing die. I know Radio Free Europe and Radio Liberty were really successful, but it's just not working the same way here. So 1954 is the year that the Committee for Free Asia was renamed to the Asia Foundation, and it was incorporated in the state of California as an NGO, right? A private, non-governmental organization. Mm-hmm. We all know NGOs are heavily associated with the government. of the United States. National Endowment for Democracy, that's an NGO, right? So the Asia Foundation is an NGO devoted to, quote, promoting democracy, rule of law, and market-based development, capitalism in post-war Asia. So this is really a good way to think about this. When we talk about democracy, what people want to do, freedom, they want to promote that free market capitalism, open it up, let us do business.
So, by the way,
Did you find the movie?
Well, okay, so there's a paper by Christina Klein called Cold War Cosmopolitanism, the Asia Foundation in 1950s Korean Cinema, that explores two films, Wedding Day from 56 and Because I Love You from 58.
Wow.
Which were funded by the Asia Foundation.
Wow. So these would be good things to add to our Patreon.
Yeah.
Okay, so screenshot that. Don't let that go away, and we'll try to add it today to our Patreon. So in 1955, the Committee for Free Asia / the Asia Foundation finally got its way with the CIA, and Radio Free Asia went off the air. They were like, it's dead. It didn't work. It's done. But the Asia Foundation, formerly known as CFA, continued its operations as usual, being secretly the CIA without anyone knowing, and got really successful. So, in 1966, the State Department started to get worried because people were asking questions about who exactly was funding this immensely successful Asia Foundation. They said, TAF is experiencing inquiries regarding its source of funds and connections with the U.S. government. It is conceivable that such inquiries will lead to a published revelation of TAF-CIA connection.
They're like, we didn't get all the journalists, so there's some journalists that
There
we're
are some
not
real
paying
ones.
off.
Right.
Like, that seems like a failure on their part. Like, they should have just paid off more journalists, and then they would have been fine.
I mean, this is something we've talked about before that always interests me, where you have, like, the one news organization, and, like, half the staff is being paid off by the CIA, and the other half isn't, but, like, you don't know who is or who isn't, and you're all, like, reporting on the same thing with, like, contradictory viewpoints.
It's like Clue.
It's like Clue. You gotta figure out who's CIA and who's not at your journalistic organization.
Not the board game so much as the Tim Curry movie.
Oh, okay, yeah, I love the movie.
I love the
movie.
board
Great movie.
game, honestly.
Kind of boring.
Kind of boring.
So by 1967, while the Asia Foundation had managed to establish itself as a private American philanthropic organization, the New York Times publishes an article, March 21st, 1967, saying, the Asia Foundation is definitely receiving funding from the CIA. Which is wild, because again, the New York Times also publishes literal CIA propaganda sometimes. But again, it's that thing. You don't know which journalists are on the payroll and which aren't.
Always, like, some kid who comes out of journalism school who's like, I'm going to be Bernstein and with the other guy.
Yes, Woodward or whatever, yeah.
Also CIA type people.
So the New York Times is like, hey, Asia Foundation, we have all this documentation. Are you just the CIA? Are you just an arm of the U.S. government? Like, just admit it, come on. And the Asia Foundation is like, well, okay, so, like, maybe we knew we were getting a little bit of funding from the government, but, like, we didn't know how much, and we had no idea that it was all that amount. Who could know where we got our funding from? It's so hard to know.
It's sometimes you open up your bank account and you're just like, oh shit, there's a ton of money in here. I'm not going to question it.
Right. So the Asia Foundation was trying to be like, well, we were kind of on a long leash program like Jackson Pollock. Jackson Pollock didn't know the CIA funded him, just like us. We're Jackson Pollock. But declassified CIA documents reveal that 100% of the funding came from the CIA, and everybody at the Asia Foundation knew it. They all knew. It was they were not on a long leash program. They, like, were the CIA. Nobody there working there actually thought they were working for an independent nonprofit. They all knew what the plan was. Still, the Asia Foundation denied doing anything pertaining to propaganda work. They were like, we're still just a tiny little innocent nonprofit working on Asian schools and libraries and student centers, and we just do social and economic research. That's all we do. Don't worry about us, please. Meanwhile, State Department documents from around this time say the Asia Foundation is a Central Intelligence Agency proprietary, quoted, whose entire purpose is to, quote, undertake cultural and educational activities on behalf of the United States government in ways not open to official U.S. agencies.
Can you imagine the guy, like, whomever it is, like, came up with, like, the first, like, black propaganda type stuff for the CIA or whatever, and, like, just never being able to take credit? Like, the Asia Foundation was such a fucking good idea. We fucking killed that.
And nobody can know.
Nobody can know.
You know what it's like? It's like Wag the Dog. Do you ever see Wag the Dog?
Like, I think that's a very my parents coded movie.
Yeah, it's Oliver Stone, I think.
Yeah.
But the premise is that the president wants to create a fake war to take attention away from a sex scandal, and they hire this Hollywood director to make it, and he does such a good job, and they're like, you can't tell anybody you did this, though. And then I'm pretty sure, spoiler alert, potentially, if I'm remembering right, he ends up telling somebody and they have to kill him, and that's the end of the movie. Because he's like, it was just so good. We did such a good job. Like, how could I not tell anybody?
Also, like, you spent, like, a year on, like, making a cool fake war.
Yeah.
Like, that's, like, how are you not putting that on your CV?
Right, exactly. So, basically, the U.S. government, everybody knew, would not be able to do the things the Asia Foundation was doing in Asia because, hello, you're undermining another country's governments and trying to overthrow their government, right? It's sketchy. So the U.S. government can't do the sketchy thing, but this private nonprofit can, right? It's just regular people. It's not the government. This is the idea. But we all know it very obviously is the government. It is the CIA. So the regular people who were on the board of the Asia Foundation when the New York Times broke this story, it's absolutely hilarious that anybody would even try to position them as just being normal, regular people, because they included a former U.S. ambassador to Japan, a guy from the State Department, the U.S. ambassador to South Vietnam, a former U.S. representative to the United Nations, a former secretary of the Treasury, and a former assistant secretary of defense. These are just the totally nice, normal people making up this non-governmental, non-profit organization that just coincidentally wants to set up schools in Asia.
I am sorry, Madeline. Are you saying if you work for the government, you can't have hobbies?
Oh, God forbid. Someone from the State Department have hobbies, which includes taking money from the CIA to open up schools and make movies in Asia.
Is it,
God forbid.
Just make them all play pickleball, I guess, on their spare time.
So this story breaks, and the public is not buying this at all. They're like, oh, yeah? Yeah, just your tiny non-governmental organization that's got dudes from the State Department and the former Secretary of the Treasury on it?
Yeah.
And all your money is very clearly documented as being traced back to the CIA? No, absolutely not. So the government is like, oh, fuck, what do we do? So the Asia Foundation, by the time the article comes out, had enough funds to sustain itself through July 31st of 1967, which was not that long because, remember, this article came out March 21st. So they're like, we can only last a couple more months. So they are like, we have to get the Asia Foundation out of the CIA's funding, and we have to make it something totally else again that's even more above board and above reproach. So it gets bounced around a little bit in terms of funding. By 1973, we get to the point where the government has created the Board for International Broadcasting, which we mentioned in the history of the USAGM at the top of this episode, in order to provide an effective instrumentality for the continuation of assistance to Radio Free Europe and Radio Liberty.
Okay, pet peeve of mine. Instrumentality?
Yeah.
Did it need to be instrumentality?
Yeah, it could have just been an effective instrument.
Yeah, this is...
What, they're using SAT words over here.
But they're like stupid SAT words.
Yeah, instrumentality. That is interesting. I didn't catch that.
I don't...
They're trying to be all smart about it.
Just talk there are times and places
like your resume. Just kidding. Don't do that on your resume. People don't like that on a resume anymore.
No, you talk normal on your resume. But like there are times and places to use, like if it is like, if there is no other word that you can use besides some like academic jargon, you're gonna have to use the academic.
Use it, yeah.
But otherwise, instrumentality. That's stupid.
Yeah, not a necessary word. Could have said instrument. So basically, they had created the Board for International Broadcasting to find a place where they could fund above board Radio Free Europe and Radio Liberty, which had also been created by the CIA. So they're like, hey, this seems like a great place for us to put the Asia Foundation and Radio Free Asia. Bring it back. So in 1981, the CIA compiles a report and says, look, the Asia Foundation has become an essential instrument for conduct of our cultural exchange program, that's what they call it, and for projects of high political sensitivity. So the CIA is like, you can't lose the Asia Foundation. We need it. And they're like, it's carrying this pro-America ideology, and really, they can do things the rest of the government can't. You have to find a place for it. So the decision was made that, all right, we're going to take the Asia Foundation and we're going to make a public corporation out of it. And funding for the Asia Foundation is just going to come directly from Congress every single year. And they're like, this is it. We're just doing it super above board. We're like, you caught us. It is the U.S. government.
So this is exactly what they did in Europe at the round about the same time, right?
Exactly.
Like, they were just like, you know what? We're going, like, above board with all our propaganda.
Yep.
Not all.
Not all, but they're like, you caught us.
Yeah.
You're right. it's now super legitimate. Of course we're doing this. Why could you be mad? So this worked. The Asia Foundation still exists today, and as of 2019 records, they received $91 million in an annual budget, and most of it was, from the U.S. government.
Can I make it a sort of like a weird, because it worked, right, up until 72, 73, whenever they were like, we got to go above board with this. Yeah. But that meant the United States, democracy, and capitalism are seen as trustworthy arbiters, which means that if you go above board, everyone's going to be like, oh, America did it? Fuck yeah, we love America.
It's totally fine. No, that's totally true. I think, I don't know, it's really interesting because this, I think, is the framework for the National Endowment for Democracy that we see later. Like, the CIA was in trouble for funding all these people in other countries and trying to overthrow democracies and other governments around the world. And they're like, well, we'll just create this super above board NGO, the National Endowment for Democracy, and they'll just do it all out in the open.
But I think, right, like, the impression I get when I've, like, listened to interviews with Cubans living in Cuba, right, is they're like, you guys started, like, a bad hip-hop group, and, like, that kind of sucked.
They can tell.
Like, and it's, like, everyone can tell, and they're, like, not into it, and, like, whatever problems people have in Cuba with the Cuban government, they're like, well, the United States is fucking worse, and they've been fucking us for more than half a century, so...
Yeah. Well, the success of these programs really varies. And, like, when we get into the Cuban ones, we'll see those are the least successful propaganda efforts we've been able to run. Radio Free Asia is more successful, for example, than what ended up happening in Cuba. And even maybe in the Middle Eastern broadcasting networks, Radio Free Europe and Radio Liberty is the most successful. That's been the one that really, because it was so successful, because that and Voice of America were so successful, the CIA keep seeing potential in these causes. But other countries, we do see this is all met with more skepticism. I mean,
I think I mentioned this last week or whatever, but, like, the thing about, right, like, the Soviet Union kind of took it out of East Germany. Meanwhile, West Germany was being flooded with Marshall Plan money.
Yes.
Right? And as a consequence of which, if you're living in East Germany...
You're like, the Americans are giving people money. I want to be where the Americans are going.
What the fuck is this?
Right.
And so, like, it won't take much to push you over the... Like, to be like, the Americans fucking rock.
They've got all this cash.
The Soviet Union took all our cash.
Right. So, all right. So what this brings us to is Radio Free Asia, though. What does any of this have to do with Radio Free Asia? Remember, they stopped broadcasting back in 1955.
They, like, changed their name, didn't they?
Well, not quite. So, by the time 1996 comes around, the United States government has gotten way better at managing these propaganda information wings. And they're like, God, if only we had something... God, what was it called? Remember how successful it was in Europe? Radio Free Europe. What if we had something like that, but in Asia? And the Asia Foundation is like, oh my God, we totally did. We had Radio Free Asia. You guys should just do Radio Free Asia again. And on March 12th, 1996, Radio Free Asia is officially refounded, but this time as a private nonprofit corporation under the provisions of the 1994 International Broadcasting Act.
Yeah.
So now it's back, baby, and it's getting all of its funding from the Broadcasting Board of Governors, which would later become the USAGM. So Congress officially recreated Radio Free Asia to target communism in Asian countries. And it was authorized as a non-federal private non-profit corporation that would operate under a federal grant. So
the timing is, I'm just going to point this out. If I understand post-war Vietnamese history, for example, they've, like, had, like, a period of liberalization in the 80s and whatever. I don't think they were the most communist country in the world by 1996.
Well, it wasn't just for Vietnam.
But, right, like,
it was for China.
So China, I guess, is
China's the big one that we're looking at, you know? So now they've got all their funding officially coming from Congress, and they're targeting, mostly China, but they're targeting other places as well. So today, Radio Free Asia broadcasts in 9 Asian languages with headquarters in Washington, D.C., but also has offices in places like Hong Kong, Taipei, Bangkok, and Seoul. And today, they don't just do radio, like most of these organizations they've adapted for the future. They're on YouTube. They're doing podcasts.
They're streamers. They're twitching.
They're on Twitch, probably. I'm pretty sure that there's a chick named Danny North Korea who's just Radio Free Asia on TikTok.
Who's like... She's like a Hegel e-girl, but for the CIA, like...
She's not a Hegelian e-girl.
I will say, like... like the sort of Hegelian idealist, broadly conceived in a like Max Weber type way or whatever. Not very Marxist.
Well, that's why I say they're vaguely left-leaning, these Hegelian e-girls. So, they've got an audience now today of nearly 60 million people, which I'm pretty sure is more than Radio Free Europe did at its height fighting communism. Mm-hmm. It's a lot of people. And today, Radio Free Asia is taken as a totally credible source. Like, this is one of those things where once you start looking for it in citations and articles by very trustworthy news institutions, you'll see them just to be like, yeah, well, Radio Free Asia said, and it is absolutely wild to witness happen.
Wait, so they have headquarters, you said, Bangkok, Taipei, Seoul.
And Hong Kong. But mostly they're just out of Washington, D.C.
But I was just like, okay, so, like, the weird-ass, like, place where all the right-wing nationalists went after they had to flee China.
Yes. The British colony.
The British colony.
Yeah.
That was still British until, in this period, they
yeah.
still had a year left. Seoul, so South, like...
Mm-hmm. South
was,
Korea.
Like, pretty hardcore right-wing.
USMGIK coming back around. U.S. military government in Korea.
So it's just like, oh, wait, like... It's
obviously, these places that are super sympathetic to American perspective.
But I have to imagine if I'm like, wow, it seems like every time I get close to Taiwan, the, like, Radio Free Asia comes in a little clearer on the radio.
Yeah.
Like, I would be like, that seems weird.
So, well, yeah, but, they're doing it all super above board now.
Yeah.
So, places that I have seen personally cite Radio Free Asia... that I was just like, are you fucking kidding me? Without saying it's state propaganda or state media. The BBC.
Yeah.
Reuters. The Wall Street Journal. The Washington Post. Fox. CNN. And perhaps most ironically, the New York Times. The very publication that first broke the story about Radio Free Asia being CIA propaganda.
Okay, and at least two of those instances, one is literally just state media. The British broadcast.
The BBC. Yeah.
So, but like... I don't know how else to call it, but the Washington Post is basically like, it's like the retirement plan for CIA guys. Like,
yeah, I guess it is.
So it's like, of course, they're like, oh, you mean Bill over at Radio Free Asia?
Yeah. Put him in here. Throw him in the story. And the reporting that Radio Free Asia does, I think is some of the most ridiculous reporting that comes out of the U.S. Agency for Global Media. You know how, like, Voice of America, they try to make super legitimate... Mm-hmm. And then, like, Radio Free Liberty and Radio Europe, they try to do, like you described, as, like, the war-torn, freedom-fighting journalists.
Yeah.
All of the socialists are the oppressive dictators, and, dear God, bring these innocent people the free markets they're dreaming of.
It's the guy with the giant camera and, like, the fishing vest.
Yes. And the hat with the wide brim, like, the fishing hat.
Yeah, and he's, like, I don't know if like, the meta photos of, like, the, like, Bosnia conflict where it's, like, you see, like, a photographer taking a picture of, like, someone, like, just straight up doing a war crime.
Yeah, that's Radio Free Europe, Radio Liberty's
But,
guy.
like, also that was... never mind.
So,
yeah.
Okay, Radio Free Asia, then, is, like, Bat Boy level reporting. To me. It is, like, National Enquirer. It's, like, Bat Boy, half man, half bat, broke out of the government hospital he was being kept at to terrorize Wisconsin. It's like this level of reporting.
I feel like probably because, like, Weekly World News.
Yeah.
R.I.P. by the way.
Weekly World News, they were Bat Boy, not National Enquirer, right?
Weekly World News was Bat Boy.
That's right.
They were in on the joke, and that was why it was always fun to read.
It was so fun to read.
It's the one time I've ever liked anyone, like, any sort of media that winks at me.
Yes. Okay. Interesting. Yeah. You do hate that in a media source.
I hate winking.
You hate winking. Well, Radio Free Asia is this level to me when I read it. I'm just like, are you kidding? So any of the most ridiculous things you've ever heard about things happening in Asia where you're like, oh, that can't be true. It's usually Radio Free Asia as a source.
Haircuts. Everybody
getting the same haircuts. People getting murdered for listening to a song. Like, it usually traces back, to Radio Free Asia. So Radio Free Asia, for example, will use almost exclusively paid sources. Mm-hmm. Okay, they're getting paid for their stories. This is called checkbook journalism. It's usually considered very not trustworthy, all right? They have entire fake articles based only on anonymous sources that nobody can confirm.
So they're just making it up.
They're just making shit up. They have random reports that end up being totally fabricated. Oh, like the one, I actually included this as an example, that all the college kids were being forced to get haircuts like Kim Jong-un. Not real. What they'd actually done is just taken a picture, like when you go to a barbershop and they're like, look, here are some haircuts we can do, like on the wall. You know how they have those?
No, yeah, I've been to it.
You go to these barbershops.
I go to that barber. There are like 5 haircuts, and it's like a sign from like the 1980s, and it's basically the same fade with just how long do you want it on top.
Right. That was like, somebody took a picture of like that in a North Korean barbershop, and they're like, they're the only haircuts anyone's ever allowed to have, and they're all variations of Kim Jong-un's haircut. And all these people, like even Westerners who were like, I mean, I've been to I'm in North Korea right now, and that one's what? Like, even people who are like, people who are working for other government agencies trying to discredit North Korea were like, that one we cannot let slide because it is so ridiculous. It discredits our other work trying to discredit North Korea.
I definitely heard, like, very credulous type people be like, yeah, I mean, that Kim Jong-un guy, he's bad with his haircut thing.
Oh, you think people believed it? Okay,
no, I think people, because I met people who believed it.
Okay, so this is interesting to me because there are other propaganda wings that talk about North Korea, like 38 North and NK Daily. They're associated heavily with the National Endowment for Democracy, which is a CIA NGO. Guys from these places came out and were like, hey, that story about the haircuts is bullshit. Don't believe it, because they thought it was compromising their ability to get their fake stories about North Korea taken seriously because it was so ridiculous.
Well, no, but here's the thing. For, like, most people, if you're, like, talking to, like, Americans...
Like an average American.
Like, if you say DPRK to them, they're like, what the fuck is that?
Right.
Right? They don't care. And they're like, honestly, those people at 38 North or whatever would be better served by doing Weekly World News bullshit, because most people they're not paying it close.
They're paying attention to the sensational stuff.
So it's like, say the most salacious thing you can, and then just, like, put it out in the world.
And see what happens. See what sticks.
And then just be like...
You know what? Okay, so the person who I made the joke earlier about being a Radio Free Asia asset on TikTok, Danny North Korea.
Yeah.
I think she's actually National Endowment for Democracy, because she's always like, well, of course you can't trust Radio Free Asia. I'm not telling you to trust Radio Free Asia. It's clearly propaganda. I'm telling you to trust 38 North and NK Daily and NK News, which were all National Endowment for Democracy funded. So they're still U.S. government funded. But she's one of those people that's like, okay, yeah, fine. Maybe Radio Free Asia is ridiculous. Don't listen to them. But other government propaganda agency associated people are telling you Radio Free Asia is ridiculous. But Reuters is still citing Radio Free Asia as though it's real serious news when they tell a story.
Right, like that, you know, so like whatever salacious shit about like whole families being like cannibals in North Korean prison or whatever.
Yeah,
Yeonmi Park.
Yeah, the Yeonmi Park stuff. Radio Free Asia is really the Yeonmi Park style of talking about.
But I think that's like more effective.
I mean, she did end up on Joe Rogan,
which is the most popular podcast in the world.
Except for ours, which is more popular than Joe Rogan's.
That's not.
It's true. I just said it was true. I'm just
news.
I'm just putting it out there to see what sticks.
I'm just saying, like, because it's like, if I'm walking around and I'm like, you think about North Korea, the DPRK, quite a bit.
Not all the time.
But, like...
I think about U.S. imperialism, I would say, definitely more than the average person in general.
I like to think of myself as halfway informed about the world. And I don't think about, like, I'm just, like... I'm thinking about what I'm eating for lunch. I'm thinking about the novel I'm reading. Like, and so I see, like, oh, like, North Korea, they all got, what's the basketball player that went over with the hair?
Is it... Oh my god. Dennis Rodman.
Everyone in North Korea had to get Dennis Rodman's haircut.
That'd be so cool.
They were frog marched into the barbershop.
Yeah, you're like, I guess it's real, okay.
I would be like, okay. I mean, I'm not researching that. Like,
right. No, that's the thing. People don't look further into it. And if people really just believe that if a lot of people are saying it, it must be true, not realizing a lot of people aren't saying it. A lot of people are repeating something one person said, and that one person is Radio Free Asia, which is ridiculous. So Radio Free Asia also publishes stories from that totally discredited guy, like Adrian Zenz, that we've talked about before.
Mm-hmm.
He's this like homophobic, sexist, religious fundamentalist, end-time apocalyptic Christian who thinks children should be beaten. This guy started to come out of nowhere, kind of, and just positioned himself as an expert on China without any qualifications. And then he just got a bunch of backing from that anti-Semitic group, Victims of Communism, the Memorial Foundation.
Oh, yeah, the ones that all the Nazis.
Yeah, they're like all the sad victims of communism. And then you look and they're literally all Nazis. And like they had tried to do all these like memorial things with different countries and then had to get them all put on halt because people would look at these memorials, like in Canada, one was being built, for example, and they're like, you can't build this memorial. It's memorializing dead Nazis as victims of communism. So this group is always coming under fire, and he got a bunch of backing from them, and he's just so wacky. And Radio Free Asia is one of the only places that's looking at him going, seems credible. We'll just post whatever he says, as though it's true.
That feels like, again, right, just like keep saying the wacky shit and like eventually you'll get picked up.
You'll get picked up. And this guy really did. And people started taking him really seriously. Radio Free Asia also got in trouble for posting anti-vaccine misinformation, but only about the vaccines made in China because, China bad. China bad. Yeah, and these people, I just like can't believe anybody takes Radio Free Asia seriously at all. And again, if you look up stories that you hear about things happening in Asia and you're like, that seems weird, odds are something's going to link back to Radio Free Asia. Amnesty International references Radio Free Asia. UN World Report on Human Rights references Radio Free Asia. I know, that's all the same.
It's like, this is like, they walk down the hallway.
Human Rights Watch references, cites Radio Free Asia. Out of the $810 million 2020 annual budget for USAGM, Radio Free Asia took up $44 million of it. So the third largest.
That's it. I still think, like, I think they're paying too much. Because they're like, it's like they could, my thing is, do the most sensational story, and you're good. Like they
just do a few, do less.
No, I was just like, because you don't have to get sources.
You don't. You can literally just say whatever you want.
Everything is anonymous sources.
If you have to use a real source, you just find a random person and pay them a bunch of money to say whatever you wanted.
Pay them next to nothing.
Oh no, some of these people get paid.
No, I said, but I'm just saying, like, I think they're getting overpaid because it's like this is.
You want to do capitalism and labor exploit the paid stories.
I feel like, right, this is this like socialized economy in news. And I'm a free market capitalist.
Yes,
so I'm
I know that about you, yeah.
So I'm like, we need to do this free market style, which is actually, this is the real point, which is at a certain point, the snowball effect actually happens because it's like there's such a flood of this for so long.
Yeah.
That eventually it's like you don't even need to like fucking, because people are just going to start, they
just believe it.
They believe anything, which means that you can really modernize, make things more efficient.
No, this is true. And they really have done this, though. People will just believe anything that they hear about China, about North Korea, even about Vietnam to some extent. And it's all thanks to Radio Free Asia.
Vietnam liberalized a long fucking time. Like,
Vietnam has really liberalized its economy, but like a lot of formerly communist or, still quasi-socialist places, they have one of the highest rates of home ownership in the world, for example.
No, they're doing great.
They're doing very, very well, and a lot of it is from holdovers from when the economy was less liberalized. So the United States has had a lot of expats starting to retire there, so they've been the subject of news stories because a lot of Americans who can't afford to retire in the United States, financial experts are like, you should go retire in Vietnam. Yeah. They have a lot of social services. It's easy to own a home there, blah, 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 blah. And a lot of people in Vietnam are like, oh, so Americans came and totally destroyed our country in the name of stopping communism, and now you want to come here and you want to take advantage of all the social programs that were established when we had socialism going on more, and that's, like, really fucked up.
I gotta imagine, because, like, there are American Vietnam veterans just, like, wandering around, like, they still exist.
Yeah, they do. They're still alive. And
I have to imagine, if you are a member of, like, the National Liberation Army or, like, the Viet Cong or what, like, one of these guerrilla groups who, like, fought the Americans.
Yeah.
You gotta be so fucking proud.
Yeah.
Like,
fuck yeah.
I was watching some television show, and in the midst of it, they were interviewing a Vietnamese guy who had been, I think, in the NLF, or NLA or whatever. He was standing on a beach, and he's, like, saying, I shot down American bombers with, like, hand type weapon, like,
Yes.
not, like, from this beach.
Yeah.
And he's so stoked on it.
Yeah.
And it's just like,
I mean, it was a righteous war.
Yeah.
So if you were to go on Radio Free Asia today, what would you find? I can tell you because I went on when I did the research for this episode. And just one of the first things that popped up, I didn't look far, right? We had like a racist cartoon of Xi Jinping as a slave driver on a cart. And then the cart has two flags on the back. And one is a CCP flag and the other is a hammer and sickle.
That's retro.
I know, it's pretty throwback. Okay, so then we've got then we've got a news story that's like teachers and students aren't allowed to leave China anymore because the CCP doesn't want them seeing how amazing every other country is compared to China. And I thought this was interesting because I was like, doesn't China have a higher life expectancy rate than the US? And I looked it up. It's way higher. And then they have nearly 50% more home ownership than the United States. And they have higher literacy rates and they have higher satisfaction with their government than the USA. So I'm like,
I'm sorry. Also, the American Ivy League college system would collapse if that were true. If you have been to a private college in the United States, you know, you're like, oh, this is like mostly like Chinese students who are planning on going back to China.
Yes. No, this is true. It also really surprises people. Sometimes people on Reddit will be like, well, you know, nobody in the DPRK can leave. And then other people will be like, oh, that's actually not true. When I was in college, people who lived in my dorm were from the DPRK. They came for college and then they were going to go back. And, like, I was friends with them. They were cool. So, yeah, there's a lot of this stuff. So I looked up the real story because I was like, this is clearly not the real story. And it appears to be from other sources. Just the actual story is that a Chinese national who was born in 1971 and identified as the codename Seth was caught allegedly spying for the CIA. And that increased anti-espionage legislation, and at the same time a banker named Charles Wang Zhongji was not allowed to leave the country because he was part of a pending investigation into his relationship with two businessmen who had been accused of like fraud. So these two things had happened kind of around the same time, and Radio Free Asia was just like, now teachers and students aren't allowed to leave anymore, and bankers can't either because they don't want them seeing how awesome the USA is. And you're like, no, these were like totally different things. Like there was an increase in anti-espionage efforts because the CIA was found to be allegedly meddling in
That was when
China.
the balloons happened.
Yeah, no, this is more recent than the balloons. And also, one banker was not allowed to leave because he was associated with some guys.
He had his passport taken because he was being
under investigation, which also happens in the United States.
That seems normal.
Yeah. So this is the kind of reporting that's going on, you know, on Radio Free Asia. Mm-hmm. So that's the Radio Free Asia situation. The next one we're going to talk about is the Office of Cuba Broadcasting.
This is the one you've been like hinting at.
We've been talking about it a little bit, yeah.
Because it's like this is the one that like Cuban expats love so much they made it come to America.
Yeah, but people in Cuba, it was the same kind of thing. They're like, this smells like bullshit, and it like did not land with people in Cuba at all.
Yeah.
So, like Voice of America, the Office of Cuba Broadcasting, OCB, is considered a federal broadcasting network. The others are considered non-federal grantee networks, just operating underneath the USAGM. So they're kind of classified a little differently. To me, what this signifies is that the U.S. government had really high hopes for the OCB, that it would be as big and successful as Voice of America and need to be as quote-unquote legitimate in people's minds.
So, and especially because like Cuba's so close to us, I think there was like it's like our backyard.
It's our backyard. So Congress, beginning in the 1980s, authorized the creation of services that would specifically target the population of Cuba, separate from Voice of America's Spanish language programming, but similar. So they're like, we need a radio thing that's different than VOA's Spanish network programming. It's just for Cuba. And of course, they're like, where are we going to base it?
I'm assuming Florida.
Yeah, Miami. They're like, we're going to plop it right there in Miami. That makes sense. And from 1983 to 1985, Radio Marti began broadcasting from Miami under the Office of Cuba Broadcasting.
In the back of a rented Lamborghini.
To Cuba. So, the whole goal of this was to try to overthrow the government of Cuba as part of an effort by the Reagan administration to promote what it called democracy, which we all know just means neoliberal free market capitalism, by providing a counterpoint to what they were saying was Cuba's state-run media. They're like, Cuba's got its state-run media in Cuba. Why doesn't the United States have our state-run media in Cuba?
That's how state-run media always works, right?
Obviously.
This is why everyone gets all verklempt over BBC shows. They're like,
state media.
we're getting what's a
the faulty towers.
David Attenborough shit. That's gonna make us
or
English.
Oh, what's the show? Absolutely Fabulous.
Oh, I love Absolutely.
I know.
I started watching The Young Ones again.
Oh.
And I was like, this is actually good.
So they're like, how dare those Cubans have their own media? We better put our media out there too, just so they remember what the United States thinks of them. Then, a few years later, 1988 to 1990-ish, TV Marty was added. And this was organized under the OCB within the organization of USIA's Bureau of Broadcasting, which was like before USAGM. Remember they had like all these different organizations we talked about in episode 1.
Yeah. It's Alphabet Soup.
Yeah, it's Alphabet Soup, exactly. Which also oversaw Voice of America and something called WorldNet Broadcasting, right? So this was broadcasting radio and TV Marti programs to Cuba via shortwave and AM radio, as well as via the internet and satellite television. So the OCB also distributes news and information to the Cuban people through email and texts, and physical media, including flash drives and DVDs.
I mean, I've heard that they do this with the DPRK too, where they'll like smuggle in flash drives of like American shit.
Yeah, totally. In 2006, 3 writers were actually fired by the Miami Herald, the newspaper, right, for an alleged conflict of interest over their involvement with radio and TV Marti, which I thought was pretty interesting.
Wait, so at this point, the Miami Herald, more credible
yeah.
than the Washington Post.
Yes. So one of the people, Pablo Alfonso, had been paid $175,000 to host shows on TV and radio Marti. Another, Wilfredo Cancio Isla, was paid $15,000 for various work with radio and TV Marti, and a freelancer named Olga Connor was paid $71,000. Mm-hmm. So the BBC was actually talking about this, right?
Yeah.
State media on state media. And they said this was a big deal because the Cuban government has long alleged that journalists writing on U.S.-Cuban politics were being paid by the U.S. government.
Yeah.
And the U.S. government was like, don't be silly. All of the news that you hear about what's going on in Cuba and the United States is totally independent, verified, real journalism. And the Miami Herald was like, no, you are straight up being paid by the U.S. government to hate Cuba, and you work here and you're reporting on Cuba.
That seems... You should
not do that.
Well, or you should at least pretend.
You should pretend to be neutral. We caught you, so you must not be great at it. So in 2006, the same year, there's this guy, John Nichols, who's a communications professor at Penn State University, and he has always hated radio and TV Marti, and he was talking about this, and he said, there's no question that the radio and TV Marti broadcasts are highly politicized. It's truly become captive of the shrill Cuban exile community. And of course, the people still on the island, they're not idiots. They figured this out quickly, and that's part of the reason why the audience has dropped like a stone. When Radio Marti first went on air, Cubans tuned in fairly large numbers, and then after the novelty wore off and they got an idea about the ideological position and really the hostile nature of the broadcast, then they tuned out.
I have to admit, like... I don't know what it is with, like... Well, I do know what it is. Like, the fact that, like, Cuba relatively successful and keeps, like, not falling, right? It really has become a thorn in the, like, CIA's side.
Yes.
Where it's, like...
It's embarrassing. They're right there in our backyard.
But it's also... It's just, like... Anytime I've looked at like CIA stuff, I'm just like, you guys have like a thing about this. Like it's not like normal.
Obsessed.
Like it's not like because all of this to me is like, it actually sounds really normal in most cases because it's like, of course the U.S. wants hegemony in every fucking field. It wants hegemony in the military and the economy. Of course, information, they want hegemony. Right. The Cuba thing, they're just so fucked up about it, like where they're just like, like I gotta fucking.
Well, then people are catching that. They're like, whoa, this sounds really weird. You guys seem really mad.
Like you chill out.
Yeah, they're not even able to fake it.
Yeah,
It's totally true, which is so funny. So the interviewer who was talking to John Nichols about this in 2006, after this story came out about the Miami Herald newspaper writers, and everyone was kind of talking about, you know, the OCB and TV and Radio Marti, the interviewer pushed back to John Nichols and says, well, you know, here's another possible explanation for the low listenership. If you get caught listening to Radio and TV Marti or any other foreign broadcast in Cuba, you could be in a whole lot of trouble, no? And Nichols goes, the Cuban people are not as isolated as you might think. I mean, there's all sorts of other news sources that are available to them, and they take advantage of it without any penalty by the government. I mean, they could receive broadcasts from Mexico. They could receive broadcasts from the Dominican Republic.
Yeah, I'm not understanding why the CIA, if they were smart, don't take this idea, CIA, they wouldn't just pay some Mexican people.
To do it from Mexico!
Like,
traffic the information.
Like, be like,
across country lines.
And like, not like, in like a long leash way.
Like the way we did it with Manila to get into,
But that's like, we had like, pay all Mexican people, the reporters are Mexicans. It's like the, like Mexican game show style thing.
Yes, okay.
Or like Mexican soap opera. But then every now and again, there's just like Elian Gonzalez just like washes up on like the
God, I totally forgot about Elian Gonzalez.
No, I like that. It honestly seems like we kidnapped a child.
We might have kidnapped a child, yeah. So John Nichols still was talking to this interviewer, right? And he was like, there's a fair number of shortwave receivers on the island. They listen to the BBC from London and so on. So no, it does not follow.
That's also, it's like radio is like in the air. I think that's how that works.
Well, people can jam signals.
Yeah.
But like Cuba's really not even jamming the signals. They're just like, I mean, again, some people are more receptive to American style propaganda, and some cultures, for whatever reason, just aren't. They just have a bigger bullshit detector, and it seems like the Cubans, they could listen to it if they want, and they just aren't that interested. They're just like, this sounds like American bullshit.
I mean, thus far, the one example of like, oh, people were super into it and like bought this like hook, line, and sinker also had to do, in my head, or like was concurrent with shit tons of American like money.
Yes. So
right?
yeah,
like that
Radio
seems...
Free Europe and Radio Liberty, yeah. So Nichols explained furthermore to this reporter that Radio and TV Marti were actually mostly favored by Cuban exiles living in the United States, not Cubans living in Cuba. And as Americans who aren't from Cuba, right, I think it's like hard for us, the average American, to get a perspective on what's going on in Cuba, because you hear Cubans in the United States be like, oh no, it's awful. And then you, like, if anybody's ever like done organizing work in Cuba and they broadcast about it, or they like film like going to Cuban community meetings, whatever, it seems very different than how Cubans in the United States are describing it. And it's one of those things we talked about before too. It's like, yeah, obviously the people who weren't into communism left.
Yeah, and you know, everyone I've talked to who's been to Cuba has said they're very poor.
Yeah, very poor. Lots of sanctions and embargoes going on against Cuba. Not surprising.
And unless they have like an ideological axe to grind, they're like, it's not like the government is like, you know, reverse Robin Hooding them and just like stealing all their shit. It's just,
they're just poor.
It's a poor country
because they've been cut off from the rest of the world.
And because it's just like it's a tiny island, so it's like you can't really do like all the crops. Like, if I understand correctly, their main crop was sugar.
I mean, that was like during plantation era, but for a long time they actually had higher food security than the United States because they were really leading the way on like urban farming and hydroponic farming.
Yeah.
So there was recently some food shortages that made a lot of news, but then when experts looked into it, they were like, the food shortages in Cuba got them to a level of food insecurity that's like the standard in the United States today.
Oh, that's
and they just have like a spirit of protest there. So there are also a lot of cultural things where like some places have a higher spirit of protest, like France. Yeah. They're like, you raise our retirement age above 58, we'll fucking murder you while you sleep.
This is the only good thing about France.
The only good thing about France. They have a culture of protest, right?
Yes.
So Cuba also has a culture of protest. In the United States, we have no culture of protest.
Yeah.
I mean, which isn't to discount the work in protesting that people do, but, you know.
We've
been going to protest since we were children, decades now.
I will say, like, I was talking to my parents about, like, who grew up in and around, well, my mom grew up in Florida, but my dad in and around the Bay Area, and like, oh, what was, like, the 60s and 70s, like, protest shit, like, and he was like, yeah, it was cool, and then it all died, and now protest is bullshit.
Right.
And
it's largely parade the way most people do it in the United States.
Realistically, protest, like, don't not protest.
No, you should do it.
it's not gonna do the thing you want it to.
Unless you start lighting things on fire.
Well,
I'm telling you, that's the only time I saw the government even... The whole thing, the way people talk about protest ideologically is they're like, if the protest is supposed to be a threat. If the government is not afraid that you will literally just burn everything down, what motive do they have?
I mean, because I think my take is that the government is so far removed from the things being burned down, right? Like, you have to burn down a lot of shit to get
You gotta burn down a lot of corporate places that fund the politicians, who go to the politicians and are like, they burned down my most profitable Starbucks in Rodeo Drive. Like, you can't let them do this to me. I'm a small, pathetic Starbucks.
I will say, like, this is why I was really interested in the campus stuff, because, like, the thing that they were, like, they had, like, really targeted demand, which was that these large universities, which are basically slush funds for these private equity groups and these investing groups, divest from Israel.
Right.
Right. And that hurts the bottom line of a bunch of giant-ass corporations and, like, the U.S. economy.
Right.
Like, they were doing a thing, and they were, like, peacefully sticking to their fucking guns on it of,
Right.
like, we are going to sit here and publicize this bullshit until you do this thing. And obviously they all got beaten to hell by...
And dragged and physically forcefully removed. Yeah. So, I don't know. I think also in the United States, because we have such, like, a wide... There's a huge difference between being rich and poor in the United States, right?
Yeah.
But there's a huge difference between being poor and middle class. Like, I'm middle class now, and the difference in my daily life between being middle class and being poor, like, if I have not had periods in my life where I was poor, I could see, like, if this had kind of been my financial reality my whole life, not understanding the way food insecurity works in the United States.
Yeah.
Because I'm like, well, yeah, groceries are a little expensive, but I do find sweaty. And it's like, oh no, like when you don't have access to food in the United States, like it's very, very bad. And people from other countries are like, oh, you guys are like so selfish and spoiled in the United States to talk about your food insecurity. But it's like, well, you don't understand what it means to be poor in the United States. Like, the poor in the United States are very, very impoverished.
And yeah.
And so, like, the middle class gets the biggest representation in the media for other countries, and then we tend to think of the discrepancy between the rich and the poor. But even the average person living a middle class life, if they have not experienced poverty, they might not even be conscious of how things like food insecurity work here.
I will say, like, to the degree that when I've encountered, like, especially, like, middle class people from other countries who, for example, have come to LA.
Yeah.
There is this, like, weird sense of, like, voyeurism about poverty.
Yeah.
That, like, the worst guy from Leeds, England I've ever fucking met in my life is like, whoa, it's like I'm in Grand Theft Auto. And I was like...
I told you I saw the German girl crying because she accidentally wandered on a skid row and she'd never seen anything like that. And her friend was like, oh, I'm so sorry. Like, I've been here before. I knew that this existed here in the United States and I should have warned you. And they were like, don't get us wrong, we have poor people in Germany. We have homeless people in Germany, but it's not like that. It's not like that. We've never seen anything like that before. And like, so I think when people think about poverty somewhere like Cuba versus the United States, and they're like, well, thank God we're not Cuba. Cuba's so poor. It's like, well, people in the United States live in that level of poverty and also don't have housing security.
Yeah, no, I mean... Or
access to health care. Like, we do have very poor people here in the United States, and I think that, like, nobody really pays attention to that. And then also, even middle-class people here, I think, like, when I was in Spain and I was talking to people in Spain, they were like, oh, the Americans, you guys make so much money, you have so much money. And I was like, yeah, but, like, do you understand how much of our money goes to housing and healthcare, disproportionate from you guys? And even, like, I made this video recently talking about how lucky I feel that Chris and I bought our house when we did, because we each pay $1,250 a month.
Yeah, no, I mean, you pay way less than I do.
Right, so we have a 3-bedroom, 2-bath house for $2,500 a month, and that's very, very cheap in LA.
Yep.
And I have a friend who has a 1-bedroom apartment a few blocks away from me who pays $2,500 now.
Yeah.
And this one woman from, like, Switzerland, I think, commented, and she's like, this is wild. I feel like my rent's really expensive. It's $900. And I'm like, this is what people don't understand. Is, like, you look at Americans, you're like, oh, yeah, the average income is, like, $50,000. But you're like, well, okay, yeah, but, like, the proportion of our income here that we have to spend on housing and healthcare is so much higher than other places that we don't have as much disposable income.
And, like, everyone is anxious all the fucking time.
And everyone's worried all the time. Yeah, exactly. And we don't have guaranteed retirement or elderly care here.
I will say, like, you know, the times I've spent in Skid Row, one of the things I've seen, like, that you start noticing immediately is how fucking multi-generational that shit is. Like,
Yes.
seeing whole ass, like, 3-generation families post it, like,
Yeah.
where it's just like, oh, they're, like, fucking kids.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like,
Yes.
this is not...
Yeah, this is it's far. I mean, the poverty in the United States tends to be more concealed and more hidden.
Yeah,
That's
I
the
mean,
thing.
and I think the last thing, just to whatever, the amount of like seething resentment that like middle class type people who are not somehow like left or whatever, like who
Yeah.
aren't like, you know, trying to think about it, or even just like Christian in like an old fashioned sense. There is this like the note of resentment for the poor is always so like, it was like, I don't know, man, they're not doing it like,
Nobody's choosing this on purpose.
but they're all, it's like the poor aren't like, they're the only inconvenience they are to you is that they are unsightly and they make you feel weird about going to the stupid movie theater with the like stadium.
LA Live.
What's the one downtown?
Yeah, LA Live. Isn't that it? The
No.
movie theater at LA Live?
It's the one with the beer.
Oh, the Alamo
Yeah.
Draft House. Yeah, no, that's true. So I think, like, yeah, a lot of times when we talk about the horrors of socialist countries, we're usually talking about poverty a lot.
Yeah.
And we're ignoring, obviously, the role that global embargoes play in poverty and sanctions play in poverty, and the role that the United States has played specifically in trying to make sure that these places remain impoverished. And we're also ignoring the scope and scale of poverty in the United States, because the way we think about poverty, it's just a little more convenient. I don't know how to describe it. We usually describe lower middle class people as being impoverished, and we don't think about like the far extent and reach of poverty here. And then you think about it and you're like, well, even the poorest people in Cuba have access to housing and healthcare.
Yeah, no,
And it might not be great housing and healthcare, but it's housing and healthcare.
I can't, the last it was like 20 or 30,000 people are just straight up homeless in Los Angeles, right? Like, it's big.
It's big. We have like 500,000 people in the United States, I believe, who are currently homeless.
In LA?
In the United States.
Yeah. Like, it's like this is not a small proportion, and like the number I'm assuming on top of that who are in some ways housing insecure, like one paycheck, like one bad paycheck, or one like health care emergency from being homeless.
Yeah. Well, and I think that's the reason why, like, the average Democrat, for example, doesn't understand the appeal of socialism among young people in the United States. Because they're like, oh, but, like, look at how poor you'd be if you were socialist, haha, ignoring the fact that, like, that poverty in socialist countries is usually the result of American foreign policy. Ignoring that completely, they don't understand how poor people actually are in the United States. So for them to say that, it assumes, like, but at least in the United States you have access to shelter and healthcare, and it's like, no.
Did you see
we don't. Increasingly, Americans don't.
The like 1 day record for donations to the Kamala Harris campaign, and it's all like finance shit.
Yeah.
And a bunch of finance people seemed to be signaling in interviews about like pouring in all this finance for her, or all of this funding for her campaign. Like, she is going to make a more friendly regulatory environment for like financial instruments.
Right.
And it's like, wait, I'm old enough to remember that when I graduated college, it happened to be like 2008.
Yeah, we graduated college at the worst
Which
time.
was like the deregulation of like weird fucking financial instruments.
It did
And
not
it's like
end well.
the fucking Democrats.
Yeah.
Okay,
It didn't end
Cuba.
well.
Let's.
So, all right. So when talking about, you know, this radio and TV marquee, and we're talking to Nichols, right, the guy who's like, the Cubans aren't stupid. They know what this is. He said, the Cuban exile community that are strong advocates for these stations and which populate most of the positions at the station, the Cuban exile community is the largest voting bloc in the state of Florida, which is a swing state, which has decided one of the last presidential elections. And so it has very little to do with Cuba and U.S.-Cuban relations, and it has a great deal to do with currying favor with the domestic political constituency. So I thought that was super interesting. So he's like, look, Cuban Americans love radio and TV Marti, so we're not going to lose it because they love it. And they vote, and they represent a huge voting bloc in Florida. And to be frank, it's a way for us to talk to them and potentially influence them.
And
it's not going anywhere.
So, but that, I presumably, that's pushing them right.
Well, in 2007, the Bush administration reached deals with 2 South Florida commercial Spanish language TV and radio stations to broadcast Radio and TV Marti there in Florida, where the Cuban exile community might see them. So the government was paying these stations almost $200,000 to air a daily hour of Radio Marti programming for 6 months. So yes, to try to ostensibly push them right. This is why the Bush administration saw value in this. So then watchdog groups like Citizens for Responsibility and Ethics in Washington started calling for congressional investigations into this. Because remember, the Smith-Munda Act, that thing said that U.S. propaganda made for overseas audiences like Radio Free Europe, Voice of America, Radio Free Asia, or Radio or TV Marti can't legally be broadcast in the United States.
So they had to change the law because they were like, we want to do we want, essentially not even for the United States, just Florida.
Well, eventually the Smith-Munda Act was revised. It's been revised a few times. But that same year that this was happening in 2007, transmissions were also being sent via aircraft down to Cuba. Just like from flying above Cuba. They were like still trying.
They got to get that Vietnamese guy on the beach with the gun.
Yeah, So delegates to the World Radio Communication Conference, which was organized by the UN International Telecommunications Union in 2007, declared this: the U.S. government's use of airplanes to beam the signals from Washington-funded propaganda wings like Television Marti into Cuba. They were like, hey, that's really illegal, actually, what you guys did. And in 2009, fun fact, Tampa Bay Times called TV Marti the world's least watched news station. And the reason was that for the TV station, Cuba was just jamming the signal.
Like they were like,
nobody cares about this bullshit. We've had it with you. It's obviously propaganda. We're just gonna jam the TV. They could listen to Radio Marti still, but the TV thing, they're like, you're not
flying
getting through.
Planes over it. Like that's annoying.
It's annoying. Just stop.
I have to admit, like my sister lives near an airport, so every time I talk to her on the phone, it's like, hold on, give me a minute of planes flying by.
Yeah. You're like, it's the fucking TV Marti plane.
And like, so you're like some Cuban guy who's just like trying to call his mom or whatever, and you're like, hold on, mom. U.S.
TV
propaganda. Give it a minute.
Right. So according to a report that was issued by the Government Accountability Office in 2009, quote, even though the radio signal has better reception, both TV and Radio Marti has audiences of less than 1% of Cuba's 11 million residents. So this is kind of a fail on the part of the USAGM.
Do you think that they're the producers are bad? Like if you like, I want like this is what I wanted to know because I like if the content's good. Like I watch like a lot of like I watch a lot of stuff that I would say plausibly, let's call it not left.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. My favorite movie's Face Off. Come on.
I love action movies.
They might like it if it was better produced. I mean, basically people did say that Radio and TV Marti is just kind of shittily made.
Yeah.
That was something some people pointed out. In 2011, a Senator, Mark Pryor, Democrat from Arkansas, introduced the Broadcasting Savings Act. And a rep named Betty McCollum, who's a Democrat from Minnesota, introduced the Stop Wasting Taxpayer Money on Cuba Broadcasting Act. And both were aimed specifically at shutting down Radio and TV Marti. Because they're like, nobody is paying attention to this except for Cubans in Florida, which is probably illegal because that's our own people. And we've got the Smith-Munda Act. And the UN is catching us doing this weird airplane thing and nobody even watches it.
Also, it seems like if you're like a Democrat from Arkansas, you're like, what, you're gonna get George Bush more?
Yeah, the Democrats are like, come on, and it's all to push people in Florida further right, honestly. Yeah. But neither of these worked, and we still have Radio and TV Marti today. So the $810 million 2020 budget, OCB, the Office of Cuba Broadcasting, the parent company of Radio and TV Marti, they took up $21 million per year. And
they need prestige television. They need to get what's his name, Wiener, the Mad Men guy, out there. Okay. And he's gonna do...
You've got a pitch. You're running a pitch right now.
He's gonna do, oh god, what's the, he's gonna do, like, mob stuff and, like, the, like, but, like, very Buena Vista social club kind of thing during, like, Batista.
Uh-huh.
Right. But then, like, cool. Okay. And everyone's, like, really fashionable.
I think
in, like, a
just
50s way.
Like, Clueless. straight into Cuba. And you're like, this is actually really common for all American teenagers.
We all live in weird mansions.
In Beverly Hills. This is...
Is that where that? No,
yeah.
That's...
Yeah. No, they're in the Valley.
Oh.
They're in a rich part of the Valley, remember?
Yeah.
Because she gets robbed and she went to a party in Hollywood.
Oh, I was
and she
still
calls
thinking
her dad.
of Clue.
Oh, no, Clueless! Clueless! It is also a mansion, though. Yeah. Yeah, you just broadcast Clueless right there, and you're like, oh, this is actually totally normal American stuff.
I'm... Okay.
Not Josie and the Pussycats, though, because that's actually a scathing, brilliant critique of capitalism. And if you guys haven't seen Josie and the Pussycats movie...
First of all...
Get in on that. It's brilliant.
Clueless, what is that, Emma?
It's Emma, yeah.
It's like the new Emma, or newish.
It is not new. It's 20 years old.
No, but the new, like, 3-year-old Emma.
Which one is that?
The Emma that came out 3 years ago.
I don't remember.
It's a movie.
What is it?
I can't, it's
Is
like...
it Emma?
Yes, it's Emma.
But do they call it Emma, or does it have a different name?
It's called Emma.
Oh, okay.
I love Jane Austen. This is
yeah.
the thing everyone knows about me.
Yes.
When I walk into a room, the first thing I say is, my name is David. I love Jane Austen.
Yeah, I've heard you say that actually multiple times. Sometimes in very inappropriate times, like the bank.
Yeah. There's a very funny story about me on Molly talking about Jane Austen for a long time, but never mind. But it is the best Emma.
It's the new Emma.
The new Emma, because she's mean, and in the book Emma, she's mean. Jane Austen famously wrote to a friend of hers and was like, I've come up with a protagonist that I don't think anyone will like. I don't even like her.
Oh, wow. That's actually pretty funny.
Okay, so get the director of the new Emma to do Radio Marty, TV Marty.
TV Marty.
Get her...
Buena Vista Social Club mob movie, though.
But, like, hooked up with, like, the Adam Wiener or whatever.
Okay, and the Mad Men guy.
The Mad Men guy.
Okay.
And they're doing mob movie Buena Vista Social Club.
Who's starring in this? Who are you seeing?
I feel like, I don't know, who's, like, a Cuban actress? I don't know any Cuban actresses, so I'm just going to say, Tom Hanks.
Oh, perfect. Tom Hanks. Put him in. Everybody loves Tom Hanks.
Put Tom Hanks in there.
Everybody loves Tom Hanks. That's true.
And then...
You think magic's going to happen? You think those viewership numbers are going to go straight up?
Give it a budget of like $2 million. Make it HBO.
Throw some money at it.
Yeah.
See what happens. No, I like this plan. I think this is potentially a good plan. So, Al Fox, with the Alliance for Responsible Cuba Policy, would not agree with you. He said... It is truly disgraceful that American taxpayer money is funding a propaganda machine for extremist paramilitary Cubans living in Florida. Yeah.
I'm just like, wait, guy, have you not gotten the memo?
Yeah.
That's all we do.
That's all we do. All we do is try to fund extremist paramilitary groups in other countries and make them overthrow their governments and do pro-America shit.
Specifically in Florida. Well, I think they were in, like, a lot of those people were training in Guatemala for Bay of Pigs stuff.
Yeah.
But...
That's what we do. So I hopped over to Radio and TV Marty's websites today. Just wanted to check in on their reporting. And I saw some reporting on the Venezuelan election.
Oh.
Very topical. So the headline reads, Cuban opposition members react to Venezuelan election results. Quote, a violation in the eyes of the world. It is worth noting, though, that the opposition candidate against the incumbent kind of socialisty, quote-unquote, leadership of Venezuela was a man named Edmundo Gonzalez, who got his degree at American University in Washington, D.C., and worked as a diplomat with posts including the United States before having his campaign for presidency of Venezuela funded by the U.S. government via NET, the National Endowment for Democracy, which we all know is the CIA's NGO. So, the Radio and TV Marty article about the Venezuelan election, which the American-backed Edmundo Gonzalez has contested the results of and said that he did not lose, he was the winner. It made no mention of American intervention, obviously, in the election.
Because it's like, we're also... That's like...
No,
we're
not going to tell on ourselves.
Yeah, why? That's like...
It's silly.
Can you imagine... the conversation around the water cooler the next day, if they did that...
They'd be like, you had one job.
What the fuck, man?
They'd really get their budget taken from them then.
They wouldn't even be able to just talk about Buena Vista Mafia.
No, is that the show, Buena Vista Mafia?
Yes.
Buena Vista Mafia Club, like Buena Vista Social?
Yes.
It's funny, I like it. Okay, so here we're at a crossroads, David. We're coming up on 2 hours into the episode. We have only one network left, the Middle East Broadcasting Network, as well as the Open Technology Fund. It's not a lot of stuff to go over.
Is it 2
You
pages?
can look at my notes here. This is kind of, well, it's all in the notes app, so it's continuous. So, we could stop it now, or we could tack on another 45 minutes to this thing. I'm feeling like maybe we should stop it now.
Okay.
It's a 4-parter?
Yeah, we do. You know what? We'll cook something up to make. I'll cook something up to fill
Make
out.
it more interesting. I mean,
Yeah.
we could just charge it for another 30 minutes, I guess.
It's up to you.
All right, let's just charge
Okay.
it. Okay, we'll just get through it. We're just going to get through it. You know? Okay. Because it's not enough to be its own episode, I think. So, the last of these kind of broadcasting situations that falls under the USAGM is the Middle East Broadcasting Networks, or MBN. So, in 2001, famously, something happens in the United States that involves the Middle East. David? Any thoughts? 2001?
No, a Saudi Arabian guy, well, a few of them went on vacation. And it didn't go well.
Okay, that's an interesting way to describe 9/11.
And
Right.
if I recall correctly, Muslims danced in New Jersey.
Yeah, okay.
No, they did not do that.
9/11 obviously happened. And this is what led the United States government to be like, you know what we need? Some of that sweet, sweet radio-free Europe, but for the Middle East.
We want to broadcast to Iraq?
All of it. All of it.
That's
Iran, Iraq, Afghanistan, whatever you got. We want to go over there and we want to tell those people how awesome the United States is and how they actually don't want to be people who hate the United States. Oh, they want to be people who love the United States and welcome democracy and free markets and liberalization of their economy. So, originally, the BBG, the Broadcasting Board of Governors, what the USAGM used to be called, they were increasing their Voice of America broadcasting to the Middle East as recently as 2002. They were like, this is how we're going to handle this. Get some more VOA over there, make them like us. And they created within the VOA, the Voice of America, something called the Middle East Radio Network. MERN. MERN. Terrible acronym. MERN.
I think that sounds beautiful. If I ever have a child, firstborn
MERN.
child, it's MERN.
MERN. So this was focused on reaching a larger, younger audience on FM frequencies, as well as new Voice of America, Arabic internet, and television programming. So the next year, the Broadcasting Board of Governors proposed removing this from Voice of America, ending the Voice of America Arabic services, and instead creating a new network for broadcasting to the Middle East. And that new network would be a nonprofit corporation, similar to Radio Free Europe, Radio Liberty, and Radio Free Asia, that would be operating under a federal kind of grant funding from the Broadcasting Board of Governors. So Congress was like, got it, let's do it. We are going to fund this brand new network, which was named the Middle East Broadcasting Networks, MBM, and this started in fiscal year 2004 appropriations from Congress.
So, like, that invasion currently underway, like, our destruction of Baghdad.
Yes.
Didn't happen.
No.
They love it, in fact.
They love it.
They invited
they
us.
They love the Americans.
We're like vampires.
This is kind of how they're reporting. Yeah. So MBM supervises two kind of things. You know how, like, the Office of Cuba Broadcasting has, like, Radio Marti and TV Marti? Well, MBM has Al Hurra Television and Radio Sawa, which are, like, the two biggest kind of things it does. So that means that MBM is a nonprofit financed by the U.S. government through a grant previously from the BBG, now the USAGM. And right away, 2002, the BBG launches Radio Sawa, which is a 24/7 Arabic language radio network. And that is just reaching countries in what Americans refer to as the Middle East. And I have to say, the Radio Sawa About Us page is really something to behold if you look at it. Because back in the day when it was started, I looked at the Wayback Machine to see what it was looking like at the time under the BBG, before we had, the U.S., blah, 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 blah. It included pictures of the board members of the BBG on the Radio Sawa website, like who we are.
And they're all super hot.
Oh, yeah. They are all aggressively just average white people. And this just, like, kills me up to see this Arabic news source funded by all these white dudes in ties. And there's people like Jeffrey Schell. Remember him? The guy who was
Oh,
allowed
yeah.
to enter Russia?
Because, wait, no, this isn't the weird anti-Semite.
No, this is the guy who Russia was like, you can't come here. And then Gizmodo was like, well, yeah, he's the chair of American propaganda arm. Of course
Yeah.
he couldn't go there. So it's got Jeffrey Schell, president of, at the time, NBC International, and chairman of the Broadcasting Board of Governors, putting out Radio Sawa for the Middle East Broadcasting Networks. It's just really funny. It's like all of them, and they're like corporate headshots, you know, just like, hey, hi, what's up? Hey, we're here with Radio Sawa. We love Arabic language broadcasting.
That's every time people have occasionally given me shit for like using Al Jazeera as a source,
Yeah.
or whatever, and they're like, it's like Qatar or whatever, and I'm like,
Okay.
okay, that's
Okay.
fine.
So also what's funny about this is that Radio Sawa was calling itself a new station for a new generation because they were really trying to target young Arab listeners primarily with pop music. So there's something too about,
I was
like,
asking about this.
you were, yes. There was like these young people are the goal target, and then on your website you have a bunch of like middle-aged dudes in suits and ties who are just like the nerdiest squares you've ever seen in your fucking life.
They who's the actor with the fish mouth?
I'm sorry, what?
The Hello Fellow Kids.
Oh, yes. Steve Buscemi.
Yeah, they're all Steve Buscemi.
They're him. They're like, hello, fellow youth. Exactly. And then also, it's like, you are clearly the enemies of the Middle East. You've been bombing and invading the Middle East nonstop and destabilizing it, and now you've got the worst white people you could put on here, honestly.
Yeah.
This is like, nothing could scream we are your enemy more than these men on this website targeting youth. So, basically, this whole situation, the way it came about is that, like, American commercial media mogul, this one guy, and former members of the Broadcasting Board of Governors, Norman Patitz was the one who pushed for Radio Sawa. And he commissioned a bunch of research. He was like, I want to know what's going to work here. And in the regions they were targeting, they found that over 60% of the population is under the age of 30, which is kind of sad to me.
Yeah,
Because it's a war-torn country we've destabilized.
Mm-hmm.
I also found in these studies the indigenous media, especially radio, was pretty dull and drab, and it sounded all like government radio, and that people were interested in something that did not sound like government radio. So he came up with this format, and he's like, we're going to play one Arabic pop song, one Western pop song, and then we're going to do 5 to 10 minutes of news twice an hour. That's it.
Okay, so there's alternate 50 minutes of pop.
Yep.
And
Arabic song, Western song. Arabic song, Western song for 50 minutes, and then we're going to do 5 to 10 minutes of news.
I've been wondering
Well, it's
this.
twice an hour, so 20-ish minutes of music.
5 to 10.
Yeah.
But, like, in any case, I've been, like, the whole time you've been talking, I've been like, did they not do market research?
No, so this guy did a lot
This guy
of
did
research.
market, like, and finally it's like someone gets the memo, which is like,
Play pop music.
play pop music.
Play pop music. I mean, that's what they did with Radio Free Europe and Radio Liberty. Remember? They were playing American rock music.
Which is why Eurovision is so god-awful.
I've never seen Eurovision.
It's one of, like, it is, I think Eurovision, like, single-handedly birthed EDM culture.
Oh, I could see that. That makes
as,
sense.
like, the fuzzy boots.
Yes, I love fuzzy boots, but I don't like EDM.
But you know the, like, festival type.
The festival, yes. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I don't like that. But I'm also old, so I don't have to.
You're more like the guys in the suits on the Radio Sawa website, being like, hello, fellow youth, than the youth.
No, I don't. I don't want to say hello, fellow youth.
You want to be... You actually, I will say, even as a teenager, you weren't very much like a teenager.
I was the most teenager.
I feel like you, as a teenager, were saying hello, fellow youth to the rest of us.
I was.
I brought you to a hardcore show and you read a book in the parking lot.
Okay. That did I.
Not meeting those allegations.
Yeah, that like. I don't know.
Okay, so they're doing this new format that's going to reach the youth. They do have some longer programs and segments kind of put in throughout occasionally. The news they were reporting, though, would just be reports on things that had a distinctly pro-American bias, right? So if you're listening to the news on Radio Sawa, the British and the American never invaded or occupied the Middle East.
They liberated.
They were just kind of there.
Oh. They didn't even go for like a we liberated you, we...
No. So like a regular news station might be like, American forces invaded this village early yesterday morning. Radio Sawa would just be like, and the village, blah, 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 and the Americans were there.
Also, here's a Britney Spears song.
And here's some Britney Spears, yeah.
Yeah,
and
it's
you love
2004.
Americans. Americans are all up in your culture now. Haha. Yeah, exactly. So also, people who listened, especially older people, were like, the programming is just kind of bad. Like, one article where, like, adults were talking about it said, quality control is very poor. The program airs dozens of voiced news pieces and long interviews from field reporters around the country without evaluating, auditing, double-checking, and editing them in advance. The results are poor or contradictory sourcing, outdated information, unprofessional language, and duplicated material. The show also suffers from lack of pre-planning and a chaotic format, allowing airtime to become a platform for emotional, unrestrained views.
I am sorry. Does that not sound familiar to you?
It sounds like TikTok.
No, it sounds like us.
I mean, we don't edit. That's true. It's all unedited.
Emotional, unregulated emotional views?
Unrestrained emotional views. Do you think that I'm a person of unrestrained emotions, David? Because if so, it's misogyny, so tread lightly.
I'm gonna, you know what? Y'all are gonna hear it. Yes.
Yeah. Oh, shit.
I've seen you.
Emotional?
No, you know what? I will, unrestrained, not uncontrolled. Put it that
That's
way.
fair. You wouldn't like me angry. So, despite all of this, Radio Sawa is still one of the most popular stations in places like Amman, Jordan, particularly among young listeners. According to one survey done, the station pulls 43% of the young Jordanian audience.
Damn.
So young people are liking it.
And presumably they're like, we want to be teenagers. There's pop music.
Right. And it's one of the only places to get pop music. So the market research was effective. So 2 years later, 2004, Al Hurra was created, and this was the television component of Radio Sawa. So Al Hurra was broadcasting news programs from 5 countries on 3 different continents in a mixture of English and Arabic. But when it started, it was broadcasting just from like an office building in an industrial area of Springfield, Virginia, 15 miles from Washington, D.C.
Damn.
Yeah. In 2004, it had an operating budget of $62 million, though. That's a lot of money.
God damn it.
So Al Hurra is Arabic for the free one, you know, our obsession with freedom, free markets.
Yeah,
right?
no,
Free
I got it.
Yeah, not too subtle.
No, they're not going to call it, like, Abu Ghraib Radio.
No, they're not. So according to the Al Hurra website, the network hosts a number of discussion programs that examine political and social issues of interest to the audience in the Middle East, airing viewpoints not often discussed freely in the region. That's important. Through correspondence at the State Department, White House, Congress, and the Pentagon, Al Hurra illuminates U.S. policies and domestic debates on those policies from Middle Eastern audiences. Guests from American think tanks and interviews with U.S. officials provide a comprehensive view of U.S. foreign policy. So they're like, guys, you don't get it. We had to bomb you.
So it's like, it's the same thing they've been doing since, like, Radio Free Asia.
And since Voice of America, really.
Which is like, we would... You know, like, the top line argument is always, like, we need to have a method of communicating our viewpoint to the world.
Yeah.
And, which is, like, a part of me is like, I mean, I guess, but, like, isn't that the, like, you're, like, there's, like, an ambassador.
Usually, yeah. I mean, the interesting thing to me is that, remember, Voice of America, they said, that's what we use to tell the world about ourselves, but, like, the Radio Frees, that's what we use to tell the world about themselves.
Yeah.
So, like, with Radio Free Europe, Radio Liberty, Radio Free Asia, they were trying to teach people in other countries a new way to view themselves.
Yeah.
Which is that you actually hate your government. You're super miserable. Oh, you're being oppressed. Oh my God, you long to be free like Americans. But with Voice of America, we were saying, we, the United States, do these noble endeavors. We are like this. This is our culture. This is who we are. So Al Hurra TV was more like Voice of America. We were like, this is who we are as Americans for you. And this makes sense because it did stem from Voice of America originally, the programming. So I thought that was just, like, interesting. And like its preceding propaganda wings, funded and created by the U.S. government to advance foreign policy agendas, Al Hurra still utilizes specific language to subtly paint different stories in the news it's presenting. Like, so here's another example, where most Arab-speaking news reports would refer to American forces as occupiers during the War on Terror, right? Al Hurra just called them American forces.
I was expecting something like Liberators or some shit because like right.
Remember, Voice of America is the more above board legitimate one.
But I love the fact that it's just like honestly by like being completely factual,
neutral. It's very neutral. Yeah.
They like don't like they can skirt the issue of like, hey, like a bunch of people like. You know, at this point, hundreds of thousands of innocent people.
Millions of people displaced.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And
they're just like, no, just American forces did this, blah, blah, blah. Also, when a town was bombed, most Arab-speaking news stories would include details saying, like, hey, civilians were killed, this is who, this is what happened. Al-Hurra would instead simply say gunmen were targeted. And that if there was bombing, they'd say the bombing was focused, precise, and accurate. They would never reference civilians being killed.
So when the like Blackwater shooting thing happened, I'm sure that it was freelance entrepreneurs,
American entrepreneurs
met with a pregnant woman.
No. Freelance American entrepreneurs targeted a gunman in a region, and the targeting was focused, precise, and accurate. And then that's it. You don't ask what happened after that.
And so you're like, oh, the like pregnant. She doesn't.
We don't talk about her. She doesn't exist. Nope. So on top of that, according to some people who reported on this, focus groups reported that the Arabic spoken on Al-Hurra was what they called exceptionally poor.
Yeah, that's the other, like, you know that, like, language school outside of Monterey where it's, like, for all the military people?
No, what?
There's, like, if you drive through, okay.
I have driven through Monterey a lot.
You know, like, the part of Monterey where all the fancy cars are?
I mean, that's, like, all of Monterey.
No, but, like, where it's, like, the old fancy,
okay,
it's, like, where the Porsche, 356s and shit are. If you're going down that main stretch towards past the golf courses, all that stuff, you will see some like Naval Academy language type school.
Interesting.
That like trains people, and it's like, oh, in like a 6-week course you can learn Arabic.
Oh, this is like who's doing the Arabic broadcast.
Which is like, I in my head every time I've driven by it, well, since Babelfish existed, I just imagined a bunch of people on their phones for 6 weeks playing Babelfish.
Yeah, well, it makes sense. So this one woman in a Beirut focus group talked about this one program called Inside Washington, and she said that the Arabic on that show was so bad that it was, quote, almost an insult. It was like wild. So in a congressional hearing, Senator John E. Sununu in 2004 said, to win the war on terrorism, we need to not only defeat terrorists in the field, we need to defeat their ideas, their anti-democratic, anti-freedom, and anti-American message that they espouse around the world, and most particularly in the Middle East. I love this because this is like, you know how we talk about like freedomeagleburger.com news?
Oh, yeah.
This is like a word salad of like Freedom Eagle Burger talking points. So he says, today we will examine a key tool in the war on terrorist attempts to spread hatred and intolerance. The Broadcasting Board of Governors and their Middle East services, Al-Hurra Satellite TV and Radio Sawa in particular. The BBG plays a vital role in the promotion of our foreign policy. So this is when they were talking about like the budget reviews. And he's like, we need this shit to kill the terrorists who hate freedom and democracy.
But also kill the terrorists in their hearts.
Kill them in their hearts, that's true. And with bombs. Kill them everywhere. And I think that what he said really gets into this mindset of what the U.S. Agency for Global Media, which is formerly the Broadcasting Board of Governors, BBG, is up to. It's a tool of war. And the United States government knows it's a tool of war. They just don't always come right out and say it. But they say it to each other privately.
This is a question I've always had, which is like, how much of their own bullshit are they buying?
This is really interesting. I don't think they're buying any of the bullshit. I think that maybe some... like Congress people do buy the bullshit.
Yeah.
Some I gotta
imagine like a lot of like the journalists.
I think a lot of the journalists buy the bullshit.
Right, like where they're like,
to sleep well at night, they have to.
Right, like, though I have to imagine it like it kills a part of your soul every time you have to like cut out like, you know, American invasion.
Well, I don't know,
because like article.
Joseph Alsop was paid by the CIA to report, and when he talked about it later, he was like, I was proud to do it. It was my duty to my country. So I think that some of these people are like, of course I'll cut it out. I would not want to say anything to make the United States look bad.
But that's like, he's like bought the, like, if you're like a liberal, Right, you're like a New York Times type guy.
Okay, yeah.
Right, you're
Tote bag, Whole Foods.
or like Mr.
Prius.
War Reporter,
Yeah.
fishing
Oh,
vest.
okay, yeah, okay.
Liberal Woodward and Bernstein guy.
Mm-hmm.
Right, where you're like, like the whole reason I got into journalism is like to like speak truth to power, and I believe in democracy and liberal democracy, and I read that Francis Fukuyama book, so now I think that liberal Western style democracy is going to become global, and then history will be over and we'll cross the finish line.
Yes.
It'll be great. You're that guy.
Yeah.
And then every time you have to not like do like a live omission or like edit your language for like propaganda purposes, that must kill you a little.
I don't know, maybe, yeah. I would think that some people who are like super idealistic.
Yeah.
But I do think a lot of these people, I think that they really believe they're in service to their country.
And that's, I think, because, right, like, if you're like that, like, NPR tote bag, New York Times, Woodward Bernstein guy, you're gonna, like, look askance slightly.
Well, I mean, NPR even argues that places like Voice of America, Radio Free Asia, or Radio Free Europe, Radio Liberty, should not be labeled state-affiliated media.
Wait, really?
Yeah, NPR has come out and been like, well, don't you think they've earned their independence from a label of state-affiliated media?
This is similar to what I think about Taiwan.
That's a hot take.
Yeah.
So this U.S.-backed channel, right, that only broadcasts in the Middle East and North Africa, it also happened to be the first place that President George W. Bush issued his apology for the Abu Ghraib prison torture scandal.
You got us.
Yeah.
I'm assuming that's how that went.
Which is wild, but that really tells you how important these people have been thinking that these propaganda wings are, which is pretty interesting. Most people don't even know they exist, and George W. Bush was like, this is the first place I need to talk about the Iraq Abu Ghraib prison torture scandal. So in 2005, the Middle East Broadcasting Network Incorporated, right, it was created to oversee Radio Sawa and Al Hurra TV, right, but more things were added to the plate over time. We have Al Hurra Iraq, we have Radio Sawa Iraq, we have Iraq Saw Talk, we have Maghreb Voices, and it's just kind of grown since then. So in 2019, Iraqi authorities suspended the license of Al Hurra there for 3 months after accusing the news source of bias and defamation. Obviously, they're like, everybody knows this is U.S. propaganda, and they now have grown. So in 2020, of the $810 million budget, Middle East Broadcasting Networks ended up taking $110 million per year.
Damn.
Yeah,
that seems like a good job to have.
It's a consistent work, I'm guessing. Mm-hmm. So those are the 5 kind of broadcasting networks that operate under the USAGM. But there's one other thing that we've talked about called the Open Technology Fund, or OTF. That's not a broadcasting network, but it's like a division of USAGM. And
I think I've asked before, is this the, like, we need to break into China's media?
It's exactly that. We need to break into China, yeah. So in 2019, this came about, the Open Technology Fund. And it has, like, first of all, we have the goal of creating all these propaganda networks, and it's to make average people in other countries sympathetic to Americans' perspectives and needs, and to kind of hear our spin on the world. And this obviously can really affect the sovereignty of these other countries that we are targeting. Like, imagine your political enemy starts telling all of your people weird, fucked up things about you and trying to encourage them to overthrow you and install instead a dictator sympathetic to U.S. interests. Like, we have a history of doing that, to put it succinctly. But, like, imagine you're in the United States, for example, and Kim Jong-un is broadcasting to you and it's like, hey, did you know that the United States government bombed 80% of our infrastructure and committed genocide in the South, and then also killed 1 in 4 of our people, not our soldiers, our people here? Did you guys know that? Hi, it's Kim Jong-un. Did you know your government did that? I'm in your house.
People can't see you.
I know, I held my hand up like a
you're
microphone.
Holding a walkie-talkie.
A walkie-talkie, yeah,
which makes me think, like, right, and you also said Kim Jong-un.
It's like a CB radio in my head, yeah.
Is broadcasting to me.
To you.
So I'm just assuming that, like, he and I are on, like, a 2-way radio.
Yeah, you're walkie-talkie with Kim Jong-un.
And,
That's fair.
And, like, what's the scenario, right, is, like, it's like a classic, like, kid crush situation where,
No.
like, Kim Jong-un is my neighbor.
And you guys are looking at each other out of a window with your
out of
walkie-talkie.
And it's like, all right, Kim, good night.
And he's like, hey, by the way, your country committed genocide here. Sleep tight.
And then I'm like, are you still there? did you hang up? And he's like, no, did you? That I think that's how that goes,
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
Yeah.
So this is what we're doing to other countries like all the time. And honestly, it's what people online think is happening. Like, whenever I'm like, here's the fact about American imperialism, people are like, oh, you just ate up that North Korean propaganda. And I'm like, where do you think as an American I am accessing North Korean propaganda?
Well, he is your neighbor.
He's our neighbor in this situation,
Yeah.
But this is what people think is going on. So if this were happening, obviously, though, you would probably try to stop this other government from meddling in your information streams.
Yeah, you would be like,
You cut the walkie-talkie, throw away the batteries, get out of my house.
go move.
Get out of here. Go. Much like the United States made a big to-do about doing this with Russian information online during the Trump elections.
Yeah,
The
so
United States was like, we gotta get Russia out of here.
so basically China was like, we're not letting you.
Yeah, China was like, get the fuck out of here with our
Yeah.
weird bullshit. So they created something that the United States calls the Great Firewall to basically stop bullshit American propaganda from reaching their people.
Yeah, and I like, this is one of those things, much like the haircut thing, that like I heard in like an absent-minded way one day where it was like, you know, China like restricts media usage, and I was like, oh, that seems like,
Yeah.
like it was just like, okay, I guess that's like a piece of information shorn of all context that is now just in my head.
Right. Yes.
Right.
Yeah. I would restrict the United States coming in my house too, personally. Like,
Yeah,
I
that
don't-
seems normal.
It does not seem good. They're trying to overthrow your country.
Yeah, they're very mad about
They're-
China.
Yeah, and we did the same thing with Russia.
Yeah.
We're like, get them out of here. So this is a huge problem, obviously, for USAGM, because they're like, no, our whole thing is that we're trying to force our bullshit American propaganda on your people. What is the point of spending nearly $1 billion per year on this shit if nobody can even hear or see it? So the idea is born for the Open Technology Fund. So this was actually a pilot program within Radio Free Asia, and it was launched in 2012 to help USAGM, American state propaganda, reach people, yes, in China more easily. And in September of 2019, USAGM officially established the Open Technology Fund as a nonprofit corporation of its own that receives funding via its own now unique federal grant from USAGM, and the 2020 budget we gave it was $20 million.
That's so. Actually, I mean, granting what we gave $60 million to Marty.
Did we give $60 million?
This is like a crazy amount at some
Yeah,
point.
your memory's so good. I don't
No,
know.
my memory is so bad. But
I think it's pretty good. The Marty budget is pretty small. It's $21 million.
oh, okay,
That's
but
a
like
pretty
I feel
little
like one of these motherfuckers got 60. Like
Yeah.
all like at some point, like, and this got 10,
This got 20.
20. Okay,
20 million, yeah.
Yeah,
So it's
that's-
around the same budget as the radio and TV Marty.
we're giving all China
We're going all China.
Cuba's budget.
Yeah, exactly. No, it's just for the Open Technology
Oh,
Fund. 'Cause
okay.
Remember, China's still
Oh,
targeted
yeah,
under
it
Radio
was
Free
Free
Asia.
Asia.
Because that Adrian Zenz
So we're just
guy,
giving,
He is an anti-China guy, and
We're
he's
just-
always getting quoted in Radio Free Asia.
and this is like hackers style, guys.
Yes,
like
basically,
being
yeah.
like
We're hacking into China's Great Firewall to
Everyone's
shove our bullshit down their
wearing
throats.
those like skinny sunglasses and they have like spiky frosted tips.
And they're all dressed really well. Yeah.
That's what you call that.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, dressed really. I think so. Have you ever seen the movie Hackers?
Yes, with Halle Berry.
No, Angelina Jolie.
Someone with Halle Berry.
I don't know.
Oh, swordfish.
What?
I don't know. There's
I
some
don't know what
other.
that
It's
is.
like a similar style, like
Okay,
techno.
I did not watch that one. I am interested though.
yeah.
Did you ever see The Net with Sandra Bullock?
No, that sounds.
That one was awesome.
I don't know.
She's agoraphobic. So she never leaves her
Uh-huh.
house. So she works from home and she does everything on the internet. But then she ends up caught in a government conspiracy and the government sends someone to steal her identity. And because she does everything at home because she's agoraphobic, no one knows what she really looks like. So this woman just assumes her identity. And then Sandra Bullock has no identity of her own and she's got to run or flee the country
So she
or
has
they're
to like
trying to
leave
kill her.
the house.
And she's kind of, well, she's like a, maybe she's not agoraphobic because this did all happen while she was on vacation. That might be a plot point, or I invented that she was agoraphobic because she did so much from the house.
She's just like.
Maybe she's just socially awkward and I invented the agoraphobia.
That's very kind
Because
of
I
you.
wanted
You
anxiety
pathologize.
representation. Yeah, maybe I did that.
Okay.
I needed that. Okay.
So they're all wearing Oakley sunglasses.
Sure. And
And-
mesh t-shirts. And they're
and
trying to
frosted
hack
tips.
into that great firewall of China.
Yes.
To spew our American propaganda.
And they're listening to, like, jungle music.
Definitely. Drum and bass, at least. Yeah. So, in conclusion here, we made it to the end here. It's important to know that the Smith-Mundt Act has been revised.
And if you see someone with frosted tips and Oakley sunglasses, probably a Fed.
Probably a Fed. The Smith-Mundt Act has been revised, and we are now able, as American citizens, to consume this very propaganda as long as we quote-unquote request it. And we've decided as a country that going to one of these people's website is you requesting to see the information. So you can just stumble across this information, and if you're not informed, think it's very real info and not American State Department propaganda. And it's really, really disturbing to me how much of this stuff ends up being a source in what so many Americans think of as trustworthy or legitimate news organizations. Like, do yourself a favor and check everything you see just to see if Radio Free Asia is on there, just to see if Radio Free Liberty is on there, or Radio Free Europe or Radio Liberty is on there. And, like, it's very disturbing, actually.
Yeah.
How often these things will pop out. Misinformation is constantly being spread about our political enemies. It's the same old story. It's just North Korea, Iran, China, Russia, Cuba, repeat, like over and over and over again. And we have this like myth of an independent journalist basically in our heads that does not exist and frankly has not existed for a really long time, if it ever existed at all.
If you see a guy in a fishing vest,
do not trust him.
Also a Fed.
He's a Fed too. Everyone's a Fed. We're Feds. You're a Fed. We're all Feds.
That would actually be like the best way to backdoor socialism. Just make everyone a Fed.
Yeah.
So it's like we're all on the government dole.
Yeah. You're giving away too many free ideas.
Yeah.
Like we know the CIA has been buying off reporters at major news organizations going back decades. And we know that from Carl Bernstein's 1977 reporting. We also know everybody's beholden to advertisers, even if they're not being paid off. And like advertisers are that's the backbone of American capitalism. So there has to be objective truth, obviously, right? But it's harder and harder to find because we've made information such a tool of warfare.
I keep, for some reason, there's a Borges poem called The Mirror that is about, it starts with the line, something to the effect of, mirrors and copulating are both abominable because they increase the number of people.
Oh, okay.
Very loving poem towards humanity.
Tender.
But it ends with this, the idea that the phantasmagoric fiction behind the mirror has begun to invade our world, and being able to consume our own bullshit feels like, oh, everything's fiction now. There's no firewall where it's well, we're not being.
No, I mean, it's true. So I always say, I've said this before, there is truth out there, and if you want to do your due diligence with information you receive, be skeptical.
You want to believe.
You want to not believe instantly. You want to be skeptical.
You want to be Dana Scully.
You want to be Dana Scully, but maybe not with so much of the religious stuff, because it seemed like that really hindered her in some ways. A little religious stuff is fine, but she seemed really burdened by her alien experiences and how they interacted with her Christianity or Catholicism.
No, but it helped in the episode where she goes on vacation. And that little girl is in a weird codependent relationship with a possessed doll and murdering people.
I don't remember this episode.
It's great.
I should rewatch.
It's my favorite. I love X-Files.
I loved X-Files too. Yeah. They don't make propaganda like they used to.
I feel like it's anti-propaganda because everyone is a Fed and they're constantly on the run from other cops.
That's actually true. So my recommendations, I always say, don't trust media if it has paid sources. Don't trust media if it has unnamed sources, anonymous sources. Find media that has unpaid cited sources in it that does not track back to the USAGM or the National Endowment for Democracy in any way, or the CIA. And once you find those sources, cross-reference a bunch of them and find the similar things that everybody is reporting, and that is probably true.
Yeah, and my thing about admitting you're wrong.
Yes.
It's my favorite thing. If you're in an argument with someone, the best way to weirdly make you come out better is just be fuck, I'm wrong, because then the other person's really angry,
right?
So they're gonna keep yelling at you.
But I think also you gotta fight the good fight a a little bit when people are spewing bullshit. You
Well,
gotta
no.
be
I mean, it's like, don't,
"Ah."
like, do it gratuitously.
Yeah.
But I think, like, it's fucking fantastic to just be like, I'm actually wrong about that.
Yeah.
So, like, if your mind gets changed about something,
Admit it.
that's fucking cool.
That's a cool thing. I've had my mind has changed about things fucking constantly. I'm always being, like, exposed to new information, and I'm like, oh shit, I had no idea. And most of the time it is stuff that was like weird government stuff that I just took to be true.
Well, that's because that's your hobby horse.
Well, so I'm constantly
It's like,
debunking things
you
that I grew up thinking.
You could be, like, I don't know, reading about sea slugs or something.
Yeah, that's true. And they probably have a CIA tie-in. The sea slugs are feds.
I'm sorry, the CIA?
slugs.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Okay, that's it. That's the end of our
okay.
multi-part series on the USAGM.
And this got 3 hours out of that?
No,
Okay.
2.5.
Thanks so much for listening to another episode of Pick Me Up, I'm Scared. If you would like to join us on Patreon, you can find us there at patreon.com/pickmeupimscared. For $3 a month, you can access bonus content there. But if $3 a month is too much for you to spend right now, we totally get it, and we're just happy you're here. As always, you can find the sources for this week's episode just by scrolling down a bit in the description.